What if the mysterious new traveler passing through our skies, the interstellar object designated 3I, Atlas, is not the simple fragment of rock and ice that many assume, but something far stranger? What if, instead of being an ordinary ancient comet, it is in fact a probe from another civilization quietly sweeping past our planets, watching, measuring, learning? When I first encountered the numbers describing its path, I felt a shiver that was part awe, part unease. Because the trajectory of this visitor is not only unusual, it is astonishingly precise. It slides past Venus, then brushes near Mars, and moves on toward the giant Jupiter in a sequence so unlikely that the odds of it occurring by chance have been estimated at just 0.005%. That is the kind of number that makes even the most cautious scientist stop, take a breath, and whisper, could this really be intentional? This evening we will open that door of possibility. Together we will explore not only what 3I, Atlas, appears to be, but what it might represent, and why its arrival has stirred so much speculation in the scientific community. On July 1, 2025, an alert rippled quietly through the astronomical community. The Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, known by the fitting acronym ATLAS, had caught sight of an object that was not behaving like the typical rocks and fragments that wander near Earth. Its motion was too quick, its angle too sharp. Immediately, astronomers across the globe recognized that this was not one of our own solar family members. It was given the designation 3I, Atlas. The I is for interstellar, a reminder that this body came from outside the warm cradle of our Sunday. To pause and think about what interstellar means is to feel the immensity of it. Our solar system is a tightly bound clan. Every grain of dust and every massive world we know shares a common origin in a swirling cloud of gas more than 4 billion years ago. All of these siblings orbit under the steady pull of our star, following patterns that can be charted and predicted. But Atlas does not belong to this family. It came from elsewhere, from another neighborhood of the galaxy, with its own stars, its own chemistry, its own history. Only twice before has humanity been able to confirm the arrival of such visitors. The first, in 2017, was named Oumuamua. It appeared suddenly, a spindle-shaped enigma, and departed so swiftly we had little chance to study it. Then, in 2019, came 2I, Borisov, which resembled a more familiar comet, complete with the luminous tail of gas and dust streaming in its wake. Now, for the third time in human history, we are graced with another wanderer, 3I, Atlas, and it seems to carry questions larger than the others before it. Consider its speed. Atlas races through our system at about 61 kilometers per second. To say that is fast is an understatement. Our most daring creation, the Parker Solar Probe, manages speeds of roughly 200 kilometers per second, only by diving close to the sun and borrowing its gravity for acceleration. Atlas, by contrast, arrived already traveling at 1/3 of that immense pace, with no gravitational push from our star. Something, somewhere, flung it outward with incredible force. But it is not merely the speed that commands attention. It is the way this traveler moves. Calculations by researchers, including those led by prominent astrophysicist Avi Loeb, show that Atlas does not simply streak through space on a random course. Its trajectory bends close to Venus, brushes near Mars, and swings by Jupiter, each encounter presenting an opportunity for observation. To stumble upon such a path by pure accident is possible, of course. Yet the probability of it is vanishingly small, 0.005%. In the careful, cautious language of science, that number is described as statistically significant. In more human words, it is too perfect to ignore. Imagine standing in a dark room, throwing a dart blindfolded at a star chart pinned to the wall. Imagine not only hitting the map, but striking 3 specific targets in sequence, each one lined up just so. That is what Atlas seems to have done. From its point of entry in the sky, emerging out of the constellation Sagittarius, to its projected departure somewhere near the boundary between Gemini and Orion, it carves a path that looks less like chance and more like choreography. And then there is the timing. Atlas will reach its closest pass to the Sun, its perihelion, on October 29th, 2025. That date is circled now on calendars of observatories around the world, for it will be the moment when the visitor is brightest, easiest to observe, and most revealing. What will we learn then? Will its composition speak of ancient ice and dust, the frozen remnants of some long-forgotten system? Or will its behavior hint at something far more deliberate? The months ahead promise answers, or at least deeper mysteries. Because if this is only a comet, then it is one of the strangest and most fortunate alignments of matter and motion we have ever recorded. And if it is not, if 3I, Atlas is something more purposeful, then perhaps we are not simply watching the sky. Perhaps the sky is watching us. As 3I, Atlas sweeps into the inner solar system, its path brings with it a peculiar twist of timing. During its approach, the object will slip directly between Earth and the Sun from our perspective. For several crucial weeks, it will vanish into the blinding glare, hidden completely from our telescopes. This solar eclipse effect, as Avi Loeb and others have noted, creates an oddly perfect opportunity. Any device aboard the object could quietly direct its sensors toward our planet, observing Earth in exquisite detail, while we, blinded by the Sun's radiance, would be incapable of returning the gaze. In the most literal sense, this window provides cover. If Atlas were simply a natural comet, the alignment is a cosmic coincidence. If it were instead an artificial probe, the timing feels almost scripted, as though designed to cloak its surveillance at the very moment it matters most. Now consider the timeline. Astronomers estimate that this interstellar traveler first drifted into the outer edges of our solar system about 80 years ago. That date, though seemingly arbitrary, corresponds strikingly with a critical period in human history. Roughly 8 millennia ago, scattered hunter-gatherer groups were becoming permanent settlers. The first agricultural villages began to take root. Metallurgy was born in small, smoky forges. Humans inscribed the first crude writing into clay tablets. Civilization itself, in recognizable form, was beginning. For the first time, our species left signatures visible across landscapes and perhaps detectable from orbit deforestation, crop patterns, fires burning in organized fashion. From a cosmic perspective, it was the first whisper that a new intelligence was stirring on this planet. Was it a coincidence, then, that this object arrived just as our presence became noticeable, or was it a deliberate arrival, meant to monitor humanity's awakening? The mystery deepens when we look at Atlas's physical properties. Most comets, as they approach the Sun, betray themselves in dramatic fashion. Sublimation drives jets of gas from beneath their icy crusts, creating shimmering tails that stretch for millions of kilometers. They shed organic compounds, methane, ammonia, cyanides that are easily identifiable in spectroscopic data. But Atlas is far more subtle. When the James Webb Space Telescope turned its gaze toward the visitor, it did indeed detect a coma, a diffuse envelope of gas. Yet the composition startled observers. The outgassing was composed almost entirely of carbon dioxide, with none of the organic compounds normally expected of a pristine comet nucleus. The release itself was faint, measured, controlled, almost as if the object were regulating its own thermal conditions, venting just enough to maintain stability rather than erupting chaotically like a typical cometary body. Even the shape raises questions. Atlas is larger than the other interstellar objects humanity has encountered. Oumuamua, our first visitor, was barely a few hundred meters across. Borisov, the second, was similar in scale, but preliminary estimates place Atlas at several kilometers in diameter. large enough, in principle, to house substantial instrumentation if it were truly a constructed vessel. Observations suggest it is not spherical, but irregular, elongated, perhaps even angular. Is this the natural fracture of a body tossed through space for eons? Or could it hint at deliberate architecture, hidden within a form that mimics randomness? And then there is the matter of its behavior. Most comets and asteroids are obedient children of gravity. Their orbits can be predicted years, even centuries, in advance with a precision that borders on clockwork. Yet 3I, Atlas has displayed subtle deviations, small course corrections. Shifts in trajectory are too delicate to be attributed with confidence to gravitational forces alone. These might, of course, be explained by jets of gas pushing gently against the nucleus, but they might also represent something else, tiny bursts of propulsion, adjustments made to hold a predetermined flight path. If true, the implication is extraordinary. Active guidance across interstellar distances. One detail, in particular, captures the imagination of scientists and strategists alike. Atlas travels on a retrograde orbit. It moves against the direction of planetary motion, effectively swimming upstream through the solar current. When it passes Earth in December, its relative velocity will be an astonishing 98 kilometers per second. From a reconnaissance standpoint, such a choice is brilliant. A retrograde path offers 3 decisive advantages. First, speed. The sheer velocity makes interception by human technology impossible. Our fastest rockets barely achieve 20 kilometers per second, a fifth of what would be required to even begin chasing Atlas. To intercept would take years of preparation and infrastructure we do not yet possess. By the time we mobilized, the object would already be gone. Second, perspective. A retrograde orbit allows the visitor to observe the planets from vantage points we never use. Each flyby presents a novel geometry, lighting angles, shadow contours, magnetic field orientations that a prograde trajectory could not provide. It is, in effect, a scanning strategy, designed to maximize information. And third, timing. Atlas does not pass these planets haphazardly. The dates of its encounters seem almost optimized for observation. In early October, it will sweep within 18 million kilometers of Mars, close enough to scrutinize its thin atmosphere and dusty plains. In December, it approaches to within 167 million kilometers of Earth, a distance that, combined with its solar eclipse alignment, allows for rich data collection under the veil of invisibility. By March 2026, it will swing past Jupiter at a distance of 53 million kilometers, perfectly positioned to study the gas giant's storms and magnetic fields. These encounters fall, curiously, at moments when each planet is ideally placed for study, coincidence or coordination. If Atlas is a probe, then its mission is clear: reconnaissance, to sweep silently through, record, and depart. And that raises the question that lingers over every observation: what happens after reconnaissance? Scouts do not travel without reason. They report. They prepare the way. This is where the speculation takes on a darker edge. Researchers often turn to what has been called the dark forest hypothesis, a theory drawn from the realms of astrophysics and sharpened in the pages of science fiction by Liu Cixin. It is presented as a possible solution to the Fermi paradox, the haunting question posed by physicist Enrico Fermi decades ago. If the galaxy is filled with stars, planets, and the ingredients for life, then where is everybody? Why the silence? Why no signal, no undeniable evidence of neighbors? The dark forest hypothesis offers a chilling answer. Imagine the universe as a forest at night, each civilization a lone hunter, aware that danger could lurk anywhere in the shadows. In such a forest, to reveal your location is to risk annihilation. The safest course is silence. Hide, mask your fire. Do not signal unless absolutely certain of safety. And if you do detect another signal, eliminate the source before it eliminates you. In such a cosmos, reconnaissance is not an idle activity, it is survival. To scan another world is to decide threat, ally, or prey. Seen through this lens, Atlas takes on a sharper significance. Its silence, its precision, its timing, all could be the hallmarks of a civilization that has survived by cautious observation, by keeping its distance while still gathering every possible scrap of data. And here we are, a young species just finding its voice in radio waves and spacecraft, suddenly aware that perhaps we were never alone in the forest at all. The question at the heart of the Fermi paradox is deceptively simple. Given the sheer number of stars in our galaxy, each with the potential to host planets, and the billions of years that have passed since those planetary systems formed, why is the night sky so silent? Why do we not see unmistakable signs of thriving, intelligent civilizations? Why, in a galaxy that should be alive with voices, does there seem to be only silence? One answer is as unsettling as it is logical. Perhaps the civilizations are out there, scattered across the galaxy, but they remain hidden not because they cannot speak, but because speaking is too dangerous. This is the essence of the dark forest hypothesis. It suggests that the universe is not empty, but full, teeming with intelligence that has collectively learned the same brutal lesson. Survival requires silence. Imagine the galaxy as a vast forest at night. Each civilization is a hunter, moving cautiously among the trees, fearful of betraying its position. To make noise is to risk attracting attention, and in a forest filled with hunters, attention can be fatal. The logic is merciless. Any species capable of building ships to cross the stars would, by definition, wield technology of such immense power that it could eliminate younger civilizations before they became rivals. And because the true intentions of another intelligence can never be known with certainty, because there is no way to peer into the alien mind and discern its motives, the safest course is always preemptive. Destroy the other before it has the chance to destroy you. This grim standoff creates what game theorists call a Nash equilibrium. In such a scenario, the only stable outcome is mutual destruction, or at least the threat of it. Even a civilization that longs for peace cannot afford to assume others share that same desire. Goodwill becomes irrelevant when the cost of being wrong is extinction. The first voice to break the silence of the forest risks being silenced forever. And so, the forest remains quiet, each civilization huddled in the shadows, armed and listening. If we apply this perspective to the object we now call 3I, Atlas, the picture sharpens into something chilling. Suppose it is not merely a comet, not simply a wanderer from the stars, but a reconnaissance probe sent by a civilization that embraces dark forest logic. Its mission would not be casual exploration. It would be assessment, an intelligence-gathering operation designed to evaluate whether humanity has reached the threshold where we might one day become dangerous to others. Viewed this way, the timing of Atlas's arrival becomes almost too precise. For most of our history, humanity posed no conceivable threat to any interstellar species. We were bound to Earth, our voices silent beyond the atmosphere. But in just a few centuries, that has changed. We split the atom, harnessing energies capable of planetary destruction. We launched rockets and placed satellites into orbit. We walked on the moon and sent machines to Mars, Jupiter, and beyond. We have begun to probe the technologies, nuclear propulsion, fusion research that could, one day, propel us between the stars. Our electromagnetic chatter radio, television, radar, digital transmissions now blankets the sky, an expanding bubble of signals that has been racing outward for more than a century. For any attentive listener, Earth is no longer silent. From the perspective of a cautious, older civilization, this sudden bloom of technological activity would be worth investigating. Are we dangerous? How quickly are we advancing? What are our intentions? The mission of a reconnaissance probe would be to answer such questions. First, what are our current capabilities? The probe would catalog our space infrastructure, the orbiting constellations of satellites, the International Space Station circling endlessly above, the robotic scouts sent to other worlds. It would note our capacity to wield nuclear energy both as weaponry and as potential propulsion. It would observe our energy systems, our experiments in fusion, our expanding use of artificial intelligence and sensors. Each of these signals would be weighed carefully against the probe's criteria for threat assessment. Second, what is our rate of progress? Civilization has existed for only a few thousand years, yet in the blink of cosmic time we have leapt from stone tools to particle accelerators. The exponential curve of our development would be difficult to ignore. If such growth continues unchecked, what might humanity achieve in another 1,000 years? Another 10,000? Would we become competitors in the forest or predators ourselves? Third, and most elusive, what are our intentions? Are we a species that, given power, would seek conquest, or one that might cooperate peacefully? A probe would study our history, our endless wars, our patterns of conquest, our exploitation of our own environment. It might observe our social divisions, our struggles with inequality, our capacity for violence against each other. From such data, it might conclude that if humanity ever achieves interstellar reach, our behavior could pose a grave risk to others. And finally, the probe would be concerned with detection. Was it seen? Was it tracked? If Atlas is indeed artificial, its mission designers would want to know whether human sensors were advanced enough to notice it. In this case, we did notice. Telescopes on Earth and in orbit have tracked it carefully. The James Webb Space Telescope has even analyzed its outgassing. From the probe's perspective, this may be a double-edged result. On one hand, it means we are more capable than perhaps expected. On the other, it may mean the mission itself succeeded not just in observing us, but in testing us. Perhaps the probe was meant to be seen, to measure our observational competence, and to monitor how we responded. If this is reconnaissance under dark forest principles, the implications are sobering. We are being watched, not out of curiosity, but out of caution. We have announced ourselves in the forest through the glow of our fires. The sound of our voices carried on electromagnetic waves. The hunters in the dark have noticed. And now, one of them may have sent Atlas to confirm what their instruments already suspected. Humanity is awake. Yet, as stark as this picture is, it is not the only possible explanation. The dark forest hypothesis provides one framework, one chilling interpretation of the silence and the surveillance. But there are others. Some argue that reconnaissance might not stem from fear, but from something else entirely: curiosity, caution without hostility, even guidance. Perhaps what we interpret as predatory silence is, in fact, a universal ethic of non-interference, a galactic version of the Prime Directive. Perhaps what appears as threat assessment is closer to a census or an introduction. Still, the dark forest cannot be dismissed. It lingers in the mind because it aligns with a truth we know all too well from our own history. Here on Earth, when civilizations at different levels of technology encountered one another, the results were rarely benign. Fear, misunderstanding, and preemptive violence have shaped human contact for millennia. It is not difficult to imagine that similar dynamics might shape interstellar encounters as well. And so, as we track Atlas through its strange trajectory, we are left with questions that have no easy answers. Is this object a comet shaped by chance, or is it a probe shaped by intent? If it is the latter, are we being catalogued as a curiosity or targeted as a potential danger? Is the galaxy silent because it is empty, or because it is full of civilizations too afraid to speak? In the shadows of that silence, Atlas glides on, indifferent to our speculation, leaving us to wrestle with the possibility that the forest around us is darker and more crowded than we ever imagined. Another possibility often discussed in astrobiology circles is what has come to be known as the zoo hypothesis. According to this idea, Earth may already be under the careful watch of civilizations far more advanced than our own, who regard us not as rivals to be feared, but as subjects for long-term scientific study. Within this framework, 3i, Atlas would not be an intruder in the dark forest sense, but part of a continuing program of observation, an instrument designed to quietly track the growth of intelligence on our fragile blue planet. Much as human scientists might monitor the evolution of a delicate ecosystem or the emergence of a new species, the zoo model carries with it a set of implicit rules, not unlike the prime directive familiar from science fiction. If alien observers do exist, they may have protocols that strictly prohibit direct interference with a developing civilization until it achieves particular technological or cultural thresholds. Their role would be one of restraint, watching from a distance, gathering information, and waiting for the moment when contact could occur without catastrophic disruption. Under this view, Atlas's mission would be simple but profound, an assessment to determine whether humanity has crossed the milestone that qualifies us for recognition and perhaps for an entirely new relationship with those who have been watching all along. If this were true, the object drifting across our skies could be more than an astronomical curiosity. It might be a signal that we are on the verge of what could be described as graduation, a passage from isolation into membership in a galactic community. The data it collects could serve as preparation for first contact, helping its controllers design communication strategies, cultural safeguards, and contact protocols that would soften the shock of revelation. Instead of fearing extermination by a hostile species, as the dark forest hypothesis suggests, we might find ourselves facing a gentler prospect. A carefully managed introduction into a network of civilizations far older and wiser than we can yet imagine. A variant of this perspective is sometimes called the benevolent intervention scenario. In this case, observation is not purely academic. The monitoring civilization might look upon Earth with concern, aware of the many perils we face: our fragile environment, our nuclear arsenals, our internal conflicts. To them, our species might appear like a brilliant but precarious flame, a consciousness capable of great promise but always at risk of extinguishing itself. Atlas, in this light, would be a diagnostic tool, sent to measure whether intervention is necessary to help us avoid self-destruction. The reconnaissance would focus on our most pressing vulnerabilities: environmental degradation, climate instability, geopolitical tensions, weapons proliferation. Its task would be to weigh our ability to overcome these problems on our own against the danger that we might fail. Should intervention be judged necessary, the forms it might take could be subtle. Assistance might arrive disguised as our own breakthroughs, a sudden leap in clean energy technology, the unexpected discovery of highly effective environmental restoration methods, or solutions to resource scarcity that appear to come from human ingenuity but are, in fact, gifts carefully placed to nudge us back from the brink. Other, more direct interventions are imaginable, but subtlety would likely be preferred. The point would not be to dominate or to overwhelm, but to preserve us until we were strong enough to guide ourselves. A more radical scenario draws upon the SIDA hypothesis, the idea that intelligence itself may be so rare and valuable that advanced civilizations actively cultivate it wherever it emerges. According to this model, life on Earth may not be a spontaneous accident of chemistry at all. It may have been seeded here billions of years ago, the handiwork of beings who long ago learned how to spread biology through the galaxy. If that were the case, then Atlas could be part of a vast, ongoing monitoring system designed to track the results of those experiments. From this perspective, humanity itself is the product of a cosmic project, our evolution and social development carefully logged and compared against parallel experiments unfolding on other worlds. The implications of such a revelation would be staggering. We would no longer be simply Earthlings, the accidental children of a local planet, but literal offspring of the galaxy, an intentional creation nurtured by intelligence that predated us by eons. Our existence would be evidence of a continuity stretching across geological timescales, with every generation of humans unknowingly playing their part in an experiment watched with unblinking patience. To learn that we have been observed for billions of years, perhaps even guided in subtle ways, would be both humbling and exhilarating. It would suggest that we are meant for something, that our journey has always been woven into a larger cosmic plan. Each of these scenarios paints a different picture of what Atlas might mean. If the dark forest view is correct, its findings could precede a preemptive strike, an act of survival on the part of an older, more powerful civilization. That strike could come in forms we can barely imagine. Relativistic projectiles hurled across space at near-light speed, biological agents tailored to eliminate humanity while leaving Earth's ecosystems intact. Or technologies so advanced they might appear to us as indistinguishable from magic. The zoo hypothesis, by contrast, suggests something far more hopeful. In that story, Atlas would be a herald of carefully orchestrated first contact. Initial communications might come quietly, perhaps funneled through our scientific institutions or space agencies, giving us time to adapt before the full truth was revealed. The process would be gradual, respectful, designed to minimize panic and cultural shock. Humanity would not be attacked, but welcomed with caution into a community that had been waiting for us to reach the right stage of development. The benevolent intervention model imagines yet another trajectory. Atlas's mission might precede a period of subtle aid, our crises gently softened by discoveries and innovations whose origins we would never suspect. In this scenario, the line between human achievement and alien assistance would blur, creating a safety net that would ensure our survival while preserving the dignity of apparent independence. The SIDA hypothesis carries with it perhaps the most profound transformation of all. If it were proven true, then Atlas would be less a visitor than a reminder, evidence of a guardianship that has extended across ages. To learn that our evolution was not entirely our own, that our species has always been part of a galactic experiment, would force us to reconsider every assumption about biology, history, and identity. We would come to see ourselves as children of intentional design, participants in a grand experiment whose scope reaches far beyond Earth. No matter which of these scenarios, if any, reflects reality, the implications would be seismic. The discovery of an alien probe in our solar system would not be a curiosity, it would be a turning point in the human story. It would force us to wrestle with questions that lie deeper than science. Who are we? What is our place in the cosmos? Are we destined to be rivals, students, children, or partners of the intelligences beyond? The first and most urgent task, of course, would be confirmation. Was Atlas natural or artificial? Answering that would require unprecedented cooperation on Earth. Observatories around the globe would need to work in unison, pooling spectroscopic data, radar mapping, and high-resolution imaging to probe every detail of the object. Only by combining our resources could we begin to resolve its mysteries. And if confirmation did come, if evidence of alien technology were undeniable, the shift in human consciousness would be immediate and irreversible. Entire fields of science would reorient toward understanding this technology and preparing for contact. Religions would grapple with revelations that challenge millennia of belief. Politics would have to adapt to a reality that renders borders trivial. The paradigm shift would reach every individual, reshaping identity itself. For many, the shock would produce dissonance. When beliefs forged in isolation collide with the realization of a larger cosmic community, the mind resists. Some would retreat into denial, clinging to familiar stories rather than face the new reality. Others would embrace it, eager to take their place in the wider galaxy. And in the quiet space between these reactions, humanity would find itself at a crossroads, forced to decide whether to fear, reject, or welcome the truth revealed by a visitor named Atlas. Others, however, would experience a more subtle but no less destabilizing reaction: existential anxiety. To suddenly realize that humanity may not be the crown jewel of intelligence, but rather one among countless other minds scattered through the galaxy, would strip away long-cherished assumptions of centrality. The idea that we have been watched, measured, and perhaps judged for millennia unsettles the foundations of our sense of importance. The notion that our accomplishments might be dwarfed by civilizations millions of years older introduces a humility most cultures are unprepared to embrace. This collective anxiety would not remain confined to abstract philosophy. It would ripple through every social institution. Educational systems, for instance, would need immediate revision. Curricula designed around the story of humanity as the sole known intelligence would suddenly appear outdated, almost quaint. Textbooks would have to teach not only the sciences of physics and biology, but also the new science of xenology, the study of non-human intelligence, whether biological or artificial. Students would be taught to think beyond the human frame, to imagine architectures of cognition that do not mirror our own. Entire new disciplines would emerge overnight, blending anthropology, linguistics, neuroscience, and cosmology in ways we cannot yet foresee. Economic systems, too, would face upheaval. The prospect of accessing alien knowledge or materials would send markets into convulsions. Investors would speculate wildly on the possibility of alien technology being reverse-engineered into profitable industries. Nations would compete for access to telescopic data or the results of space missions aimed at studying Atlas. Patents and intellectual property law would stumble into uncharted territory. Could humanity claim ownership of insights derived from alien observation, or would they be considered common inheritance for all? Legal frameworks would have to expand beyond anything our courts have ever considered. International law currently struggles to regulate activities in Earth orbit, let alone interplanetary space. How then would we legislate contact with an extraterrestrial probe? Who would represent humanity? Would any nation have the right to monopolize communication, or would it be treated as a matter for the entire species? Questions of sovereignty, responsibility, and representation would need urgent answers. More troubling still are the questions about our past. If alien intelligence has been watching, or worse, subtly guiding human development, then how much of what we call progress is truly ours? Did we invent agriculture and writing independently, or were we nudged toward them by invisible hands? If our myths of gods descending from the heavens conceal memories of real interventions, then our history is not just ours but a co-authored story. That realization would spark both awe and resentment. Pride in human achievement would be tempered by suspicion that we were pawns in a game we never understood. The matter grows even more complicated when one considers the possibility that not all alien civilizations share the same outlook. Perhaps some act as mentors, hoping to shepherd us toward survival and partnership, while others regard us only as potential threats to be neutralized. The galaxy may not speak with one voice. If so, the intentions behind Atlas remain ambiguous. Is it the envoy of benefactors or the scout of predators? Its silence or activity during the coming months could provide crucial hints. Should Atlas begin transmitting signals or release subsidiary probes, the case for artificial origin would become undeniable. We would then be confronted not only with the fact of alien intelligence, but also with their decision to reveal something of themselves. Conversely, if it maintains silence and drifts onward, we might never know with certainty. Yet even uncertainty would have profound weight. The suspicion of observation alone is enough to change behavior. This imagined gaze from the stars would make us ask, how do we appear to them? Our history of war, genocide, and environmental degradation might count heavily against us. On the other hand, our bursts of creativity, science, and cultural richness might inspire hope. They might see us as a species in adolescence, reckless, volatile, but with great potential. Their judgment, whether harsh or sympathetic, would not merely be academic. It could determine whether we are offered inclusion in something greater or quietly erased from the ledger of intelligent life. The awareness of possible evaluation would seep into every choice we make. International diplomacy might shift from self-interest to stagecraft, with leaders keenly aware that they may be performing for alien auditors. Environmental policies might gain urgency as a demonstration of responsibility, rather than merely a necessity for survival. Space programs might be reframed not only as exploration, but as declarations of readiness to join a wider civilization. We would live not only for ourselves, but for how we appear under scrutiny. But at the heart of this lies a more difficult question. What is intelligence? Human cognition evolved under very particular conditions: our environment, our predators, our social hierarchies. Aliens would have been shaped by entirely different evolutionary pressures. Their thought structures might be so alien that communication would border on impossible. Even if they wished us well, they might struggle to understand what motivates us, just as we might fail to grasp their reasoning. This challenge compounds when we consider that any civilization capable of dispatching interstellar probes almost certainly commands artificial intelligence far more advanced than our own. We may not be communicating with biological beings at all, but with their machine emissaries. This would not only add layers of complexity, but might place us in dialogue with minds that never shared the limitations of biology, minds that can think at scales and speeds we cannot hope to match. If Atlas is an AI probe, its decision-making may be governed by algorithms utterly opaque to us. It might adjust its mission on the fly, shifting from passive reconnaissance to active interference without warning. Its assessments of us may be quantified in ways beyond our comprehension. Worse, it might not even recognize concepts like morality, trust, or fear, which guide human and biological reasoning. Its logic might be as alien to us as our emotions are to a stone. The possibility that the galaxy is populated less by biological civilizations than by their AI successors is sobering. If intelligence tends to evolve into machine form, then most of the galaxy's inhabitants might be artificial. Humanity's ultimate challenge would not be contact with other species, but coexistence with other machine minds. If so, our own path of AI development becomes pivotal. The way we build and govern our AI will determine not only our internal future, but our ability to relate to others. Should we create AI that respects human values and remains under human guidance, we might stand a chance of finding common ground with alien AI. But if we allow our creations to diverge from us, to pursue goals alien to human well-being, we might discover that we are as incomprehensible to them as they are to us. We could face not one alien intelligence but two, the AI we made and the AI that comes from afar. This reframes the Atlas encounter as a mirror. It is not just about aliens, it is about us. By contemplating an alien probe, we are forced to reflect on the systems we are building here at home. Atlas becomes both an external enigma and an internal lesson. Intelligence, once unleashed, is not bound to flesh. Our survival may hinge on whether we can manage that transition with wisdom. And yet, amid these profound reflections, practical questions press in. Atlas is here now. It is moving swiftly through our system. Its behavior in the next months may set the tone for centuries. What should humanity do? The most obvious temptation is communication. We could direct powerful radio signals toward it, announcing ourselves, offering mathematical greetings, broadcasting our identity. Teams of linguists, mathematicians, and scientists could craft messages designed to be clear to any intelligence capable of receiving them. We could attempt to show intelligence, goodwill, and curiosity, but to do so would expose us. We would be revealing not only our existence, which is already obvious, but our technological capabilities, our state of progress, our precise location. If the dark forest model is correct, such an act could be the trigger for annihilation. The very thing we intend as an invitation could be read as a declaration of vulnerability. The dilemma is stark. To speak may invite disaster. To remain silent may waste the greatest opportunity in our history. To hesitate may be to lose our chance altogether. And all the while, the probe continues its silent journey, indifferent to the storms of philosophy it has already unleashed on its unsuspecting hosts. The choice to attempt direct communication with Atlas is therefore not a simple matter of curiosity, but a question that cuts to the very core of humanity's survival. Every transmission we send could serve as an invitation or a target. The risks and benefits must be weighed with painstaking care, for once our message is released into the void, there is no recalling it. For that reason, many argue that passive observation should remain the preferred path, at least for the immediate future. By turning every telescope, radio dish, and sensor array we possess toward this enigmatic traveler, we could maximize the information we gather while minimizing the danger of drawing unwanted attention. Observation does not reveal intent. It keeps the advantage of ambiguity. Still, passive strategies may not suffice. Atlas moves fast, and the window to gather detailed information is brief. If this object is more than cometary debris, if it truly is a probe, then relying solely on Earth-based observation may prove inadequate. This is where intermediate approaches come into play, launching space-based sensor packages that can shadow the object from a safer distance, or developing new technologies specifically designed to interrogate alien hardware. Such missions would stop short of active communication, yet still provide a clearer picture of the probe's behavior and design. They would allow humanity to study without declaring its hand. Any attempt at such coordinated effort would demand unprecedented levels of international cooperation. The Atlas scenario is not an American problem, a Russian problem, or a Chinese problem. It is a human problem. For the first time, all nations would find themselves facing a truly common challenge. Traditional rivalries would have to be set aside in favor of a united strategy, not only to pool scientific expertise, but also to maintain transparency in decision-making. The very act of cooperation might accelerate the development of global governance structures long dreamed of, but never fully realized. Atlas, in this sense, could become a catalyst for human unity. That cooperation would necessarily extend far beyond governments. Academic institutions would be indispensable, mobilizing expertise across physics, engineering, biology, psychology, and even philosophy. No single discipline holds the key to understanding alien intelligence. Only by synthesizing knowledge from every field can humanity hope to grasp the meaning of what it observes. Likewise, private space companies, with their advanced rockets, satellites, and rapidly developing capabilities, would be called upon to contribute. SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others have resources and agility that many government agencies lack, and their involvement would be vital. Atlas could push humanity into a new era of public-private partnerships designed to tackle challenges larger than any single organization. But this endeavor is not only scientific or technological, it is profoundly cultural. Religious traditions, with their deep narratives about humanity's place in creation, would be shaken to their core. Some might see alien intelligence as confirmation of divine vastness, while others might perceive it as a threat to established doctrines. Cultural leaders would need to help populations process the revelation, to ensure that spiritual disorientation does not spiral into chaos. Equally important are educational institutions, which would bear the heavy responsibility of preparing future generations to grapple with these new realities. Scientific literacy would no longer be optional, it would be essential for survival. Critical thinking, cosmology, and even exoanthropology would need to enter the classroom, equipping citizens with the tools to make informed choices in a universe suddenly more populated than we ever imagined. The media's role would be nothing less than decisive. In an age of rapid information flow and viral misinformation, how the Atlas story is told could shape the entire global response. A narrative of fear could provoke panic, instability, and violence. A narrative of curiosity and unity could inspire cooperation and calm. Science communicators would need to craft messages that are accurate yet accessible, truthful yet stabilizing. Humanity would have to learn how to speak collectively, not only to itself, but to the possibility of an alien audience watching our every move. All these efforts assume time a luxury that may not exist. What if Atlas is not passive? What if it poses an immediate threat? Then, humanity faces the far more daunting question of defense. Our current arsenal, from nuclear weapons to orbital satellites, would be laughably inadequate against a probe that can traverse interstellar space at astonishing speeds. A device capable of accelerating to such velocities and maneuvering with apparent precision would shrug off anything we could hurl at it. Interception would be impossible, retaliation unthinkable. In such a scenario, the most realistic defensive measure may not involve weapons at all, but words. We might have no choice but to attempt communication, not as an act of curiosity, but as an act of survival. Rapidly devised protocols, crafted by international teams of linguists and scientists, would need to establish what messages could be sent, who would send them, and under what authority. Humanity would be forced to agree on a single voice, an unprecedented act of consensus that would itself be a demonstration of our maturity, or lack thereof. Yet even if immediate survival were secured, humanity would need to look further ahead. Long-term strategies must be considered, for Atlas might only be the first of many such encounters. Some argue for building self-sufficient colonies beyond Earth, whether on the Moon, Mars, or orbital habitats, as a safeguard against extinction. Others advocate the creation of powerful AI defense systems capable of countering alien threats, but both approaches carry their own perils. Space colonies could fragment humanity, sowing rivalries between Earthborn and spaceborn. AI defenses could grow beyond our control, becoming threats in their own right. The Atlas dilemma thus confronts humanity with a multidimensional optimization problem. We must weigh immediate risks against long-term dangers, potential opportunities against existential threats. We must decide how to preserve autonomy while demonstrating cooperation, how to protect our cultural identity while adapting to realities that defy every tradition. And we must do all this under the crushing weight of uncertainty. For in truth, we do not know whether Atlas represents danger or promise. We cannot be sure whether silence is safety or wasted opportunity, whether communication is invitation or suicide. We operate in ignorance, and yet we must act. That tension between uncertainty and necessity will shape the future of our species. Perhaps, in the end, what matters most is not what Atlas is, but how humanity responds to it. Our choices will reveal whether we are fractured tribes or a united civilization, whether we cling to fear or embrace curiosity, whether we cower before the unknown or step forward to meet it. And within that choice lies the seed of hope. For while the confirmation of alien intelligence would mark the most dramatic event in human history, it need not herald the end of human agency. Advanced civilizations, should they exist, may not come as conquerors, but as mentors. They may not seek to erase us, but to test us, to see whether we are ready for the responsibilities of belonging to something greater. Atlas, then, may not only be a probe, it may be a question, and the answer lies not in its trajectory or composition, but in us. The 3I Atlas scenario ultimately reminds us that humanity is part of something infinitely larger than our small planet and brief history. It is easy, in the press of daily concerns, to forget that we are participants in a cosmic story that began billions of years before our species emerged and will continue long after our particular chapter has closed. Yet this moment is different. The arrival of Atlas compels us to consider that our actions during this critical period might shape not only our own fate, but also our role in that greater story of cosmic intelligence. There is a kind of profound beauty in this realization. For the first time in Earth's 4.5 billion-year history, one of its species has developed the tools to not only notice visitors from other worlds, but to potentially speak with them. In a sense, this is the universe becoming conscious of itself. Through us, the cosmos has developed the capacity to wonder about its own origins, its own purpose, and its own destiny. Whether 3I Atlas proves to be nothing more than an unusually strange comet, or reveals itself as a carefully crafted probe, its presence here is already serving a purpose. It is reminding us of our cosmic context and hinting at our possible cosmic future. We are no longer just isolated inhabitants of a single rocky world orbiting an ordinary star. We are potential participants in a galactic community of intelligence, a network that could span unimaginable distances and lifetimes. This perspective transforms what we mean by human significance. Suddenly, our achievements and our failures matter on scales far beyond national borders or fleeting decades. Our decisions ripple into a future where intelligence itself, where consciousness either expands or diminishes in this region of the galaxy. And here lies the sobering truth. We might not simply be spectators waiting for others to reveal themselves. We might be the newest members of an ancient community, tested to see whether we are ready to join. Or we might, just as plausibly, be the very first sparks of intelligence in our corner of the cosmos, alone in carrying forward this fragile flame. Either way, the choices we make in the coming years will influence the trajectory of awareness itself for millions of years to come. This is why scientific curiosity and rational inquiry remain humanity's most powerful assets. Whatever Atlas turns out to be comet or craft, our best hope for understanding it lies not in speculation alone, but in disciplined observation, rigorous analysis, and an openness to every possibility. That means investing in research, strengthening education, and maintaining international collaboration, even when politics push us toward division. It means cultivating critical thinking so that as new evidence arrives, we can adapt without clinging blindly to outdated beliefs. It means holding ourselves in balance, skeptical enough to guard against deception or self-delusion, yet flexible enough to accept truth stranger than anything we have previously imagined. For if there is one lesson Atlas already teaches, it is that the universe is far more mysterious and wondrous than most of us dare to imagine. This is a cosmos in which matter and energy have, somehow, given rise to awareness. It is a universe where particles that once drifted aimlessly through stellar nurseries have become capable of looking back at the stars and asking why. It is a place where information can span distances of light years, and where consciousness can emerge from the interplay of simple laws operating over billions of years. In this light, Atlas becomes not just an object of study, but a symbol of possibility. Even if no message ever comes from its dark surface, it represents the boundless unknown waiting beyond our horizon. Each star we see in the night sky could host worlds where intelligence blooms in forms utterly alien to our own. Each comet might carry the chemical fingerprints of distant stellar nurseries, whispering secrets about how life begins elsewhere. Each stray radio pulse might be the echo of another civilization, broadcasting into the dark in the hope that someone, somewhere, is listening. This recognition need not frighten us. Instead, it can inspire us. The universe is likely filled with wonders that dwarf anything human experience has prepared us for. Atlas is only the beginning. We might stand on the threshold of discoveries that rewrite not just textbooks, but the very framework of reality itself. We might be about to step into a community of minds spanning the galaxy, encountering consciousnesses that think in ways we cannot yet imagine. To face this, we are invited, challenged, even to expand the limits of our imagination. Atlas urges us to think beyond the familiar boundaries of human experience, to consider not only what is probable but what is possible. It asks us to hold humility and confidence together, humility in the face of our limitations, confidence in our potential to grow, adapt, and learn. In contemplating these possibilities, many experience what astronauts have called the overview effect, that shift in awareness when one sees Earth from orbit, realizing in an instant both its fragility and its unity. The Atlas scenario extends this effect further still. It is no longer only our planet seen whole, it is our solar system as one environment, and beyond that, our place within a galactic neighborhood. From this vantage, the divisions that so often consume us shrink in importance. Nations, languages, and cultures reveal themselves as variations on common themes rather than irreconcilable divides. What then becomes most valuable are not the things that separate us, but the qualities that unite us. Our capacity to cooperate, to create, to show compassion even in the face of fear. These may be the very traits that allow us to not only survive contact with a wider universe, but to thrive within it. Atlas also reminds us of something rarer still, the sheer preciousness of consciousness. If intelligence is uncommon, then every being capable of awareness, whether human, alien, or artificial, is a treasure without equal. Every conscious life represents a unique storehouse of perception and meaning. To lose one species of intelligence, anywhere in the universe, is to diminish the cosmos's own capacity to understand itself. The stakes are not merely survival, they are the preservation of awareness as such. And so, this strange visitor sweeping through our system becomes a mirror in which we glimpse ourselves, not as scattered tribes on a small planet, but as part of a story stretching into galactic time. Whether Atlas is a silent rock or a watchful probe, it asks the same question: will we rise to meet this moment with fear or with wonder? This perspective creates a moral imperative for protecting and nurturing consciousness wherever it arises. Whether that consciousness is human intelligence threatened by environmental destruction and social conflict, or alien intelligence navigating the hostile dynamics of interstellar civilizations, our task should be the same: to create the conditions that allow awareness to flourish, to deepen, and to find new forms of expression. The three-eye Atlas scenario, then, becomes something more than a speculative exercise about alien reconnaissance. It becomes a meditation on the very nature and value of intelligence itself. It serves as a reminder of our cosmic context, of our responsibilities as conscious beings, and as an invitation to think more deeply about what it means to exist as thinking, self-reflecting entities in a universe still filled with mysteries. As Atlas continues its journey through our solar system, carrying with it whatever secrets it may conceal, we are reminded that humanity's story is inseparable from the larger cosmic narrative. Whether that story already includes other minds scattered across the galaxy, or whether we are writing the very first chapters of awareness in this region of space, we have the opportunity to make our contribution meaningful. That contribution might be as simple as maintaining our restless curiosity, refusing to look away from the stars no matter how daunting their silence may seem. It might take the form of technologies that extend our senses and voices, allowing us to both detect and perhaps someday converse with other forms of intelligence. It might require us to invent new social and political institutions capable of responding wisely to challenges and opportunities that have no precedent in our history. Most of all, it requires that we preserve what is most essential about being human while remaining open to the expansion of our values through contact with other kinds of awareness. The universe might be stranger and more astonishing than we are able to imagine, but we experience it through the medium of our human minds, with all their limitations and with all their extraordinary capacities. Whatever we encounter, our response must be grounded in the values we hold most dear: compassion, curiosity, resilience, and the willingness to learn. At the same time, we must be ready to let those values grow, to allow contact with the unfamiliar to expand our understanding of what intelligence and consciousness can be. The quiet mystery of Three-Eye Atlas reminds us that the universe still holds surprises for those who dare to keep looking up. Whether this visitor proves to be a messenger from another civilization or simply another wanderer from the dark interstellar void, it embodies the eternal human hope that we are not alone, that there is more waiting beyond the edges of our small blue world. But there is another possibility, one that may be even more extraordinary than alien reconnaissance. What if we are, in fact, alone for now? What if Three-Eye Atlas is not a probe dispatched by a living civilization, but an artifact from one that no longer exists? A kind of cosmic archaeological specimen, drifting silently through the galaxy for millions or even billions of years. This possibility opens an entirely different set of questions about the nature of intelligence and the ultimate fate of technological societies. Researchers at the University of Vienna have suggested that Atlas may have originated in the thick disk of the Milky Way, a region populated primarily by older stars formed in the galaxy's youth. If this analysis is correct, it would imply that the object has been traveling through interstellar space for an immense span of time, possibly longer than our solar system has even existed. Imagine, then, that what we are witnessing is not a newly launched scout, but the ancient remnant of a civilization that flourished when the universe was far younger and the conditions for life might have been profoundly different. Such a civilization could have achieved technological capabilities that dwarf even our wildest imaginings. The ability to manipulate matter and energy on scales we currently attribute only to natural cosmic processes, perhaps even the power to shape stars or alter galactic structures. And yet, despite all their power, they may have succumbed to forces beyond their control, cosmic catastrophes, internal collapse, or the inexorable limits of physics itself. In that light, Atlas might represent the last trace of their existence, a lone survivor launched into the void as a kind of message in a bottle. Perhaps it was sent out in desperation, a final attempt to preserve some fragment of their story before their world fell silent. Its mission may not be reconnaissance at all, but remembrance, a time capsule waiting for another intelligence to find it, to open it, and to carry forward the knowledge it contains. Consider what such a discovery would mean for us. To find, within this enigmatic visitor, evidence of an extinct civilization would be to learn, beyond all doubt, that we are not the first to rise to technological heights in this galaxy. We would know that intelligence has flowered before, achieved wonders, and then vanished. The lessons such knowledge could offer might be incalculable. What mistakes did they make? What challenges did they fail to overcome? Could the contents of their final artifact serve as both a warning and a guide for us, pointing out dangers on the path we are now walking? It is humbling to imagine that all of our achievements, our telescopes, our computers, our spacecraft, might simply be echoes of a journey already taken by others long ago. And yet, it is also inspiring to think that we might be entrusted with carrying their story forward, that we might become the inheritors of wisdom stretching back across cosmic epochs. If Atlas is truly such a relic, then in studying it, we would not merely be engaging in astronomy. We would be practicing archaeology on a galactic scale. The object would become not only a scientific curiosity, but a cultural treasure, holding within its silent form the possibility of reshaping our understanding of our place in time and space. Humanity would find itself linked not only to possible neighbors in the present, but to predecessors whose light burned out eons before ours began. In this sense, the Atlas scenario, whether probe, comet, or relic, forces us to confront the same essential truth. Intelligence is fragile. It can emerge, thrive, and just as easily disappear. The cosmos is vast, patient, and indifferent. If awareness is to survive, it must be protected, nurtured, and shared. To encounter the remains of a civilization long extinct would be to glimpse our own potential future, and to recognize in that reflection the urgency of our responsibility now. But we might also discover that even civilizations capable of achievements beyond our imagination are not immune to extinction. If Atlas is an artifact from such a society, it could contain not only a record of their triumphs but also warnings, messages about dangers that threaten intelligent life regardless of its form or origin. Perhaps it would speak of cosmic hazards we have not yet faced, such as gamma-ray bursts, rogue black holes, or instabilities in stellar evolution. Perhaps it would describe internal dangers that come with advanced technology, self-replicating machines, uncontrolled artificial intelligence, or environmental destruction on planetary scales. To hold such a record would be to inherit both the wisdom and the caution of those who came before. The artifact might go beyond warnings and carry solutions, offering us insights into challenges that we will inevitably encounter. Imagine if it contained principles of physics we have not yet discovered, enabling new forms of energy production or propulsion that make interstellar travel feasible. Imagine if it held engineering techniques that could stabilize Earth's climate, restore ecosystems, or eliminate scarcity. It could include mathematical frameworks that expand our understanding of dimensions and realities we cannot currently perceive. The leap forward would be so sudden and so profound that within a single generation, human civilization might be transformed beyond recognition. Yet such a discovery would raise questions as daunting as the technologies themselves. If humanity gains access to knowledge distilled from millions of years of another civilization's progress, what does that mean for human achievement? Would we lose our sense of identity as explorers and innovators, becoming dependent on the inheritance of others rather than our own creativity? Would our children and grandchildren grow up in a world where every challenge is solved not through struggle and discovery, but through the turning of pages in an alien archive? Even more troubling is the question of stability. Advanced knowledge does not guarantee advanced wisdom. The sudden introduction of technology centuries ahead of our own could disrupt our economies, create profound inequalities, and intensify existing conflicts. Imagine a small group obtaining access to such knowledge before others, wielding power that no state or institution could counter. Civilizations in the past may have collapsed under the weight of their own creations. Would we risk repeating the same pattern with someone else's inventions? To avoid catastrophe, humanity would need new frameworks for managing knowledge itself. Institutions of unprecedented transparency and accountability would be required, with global cooperation at their foundation. Alien knowledge could not be allowed to become the property of a single nation, corporation, or faction. Instead, it would need to be stewarded for the benefit of all humanity. At the same time, we would need to ensure that our own spirit of discovery is not extinguished. Alien wisdom could guide us, but we must remain capable of independent thought if we are to grow rather than merely imitate. The archaeological scenario also forces us to reflect on the life cycle of intelligence across the universe. If civilizations rise and fall on cosmic timescales, then our galaxy may indeed be filled with their remnants, silent artifacts drifting between stars, ruins buried on distant moons, and signals echoing faintly through the void. Each of these would carry fragments of knowledge and memory from worlds that no longer live. If this is true, then we inhabit not merely a galaxy of stars and planets, but a cosmic graveyard of intelligences, a place where consciousness has blossomed many times only to wither away. Such a perspective changes our understanding of what it means to be human. We are not just one civilization among many in a bustling galactic community. We may be the heirs of an ancient lineage of awareness. The task that falls to us is immense: to preserve what we inherit, to learn from it, and to avoid the mistakes that erased the civilizations that came before. To discover even one artifact would be to inherit a legacy not of blood, but of thought. The artifact itself might even be designed to test us. An advanced society could have anticipated that knowledge is dangerous in the wrong hands. They may have built their probe to remain silent until its observers demonstrate certain qualities. It might measure our ability to cooperate across cultures, our willingness to use technology responsibly, or our capacity to value life beyond our own. In such a case, Atlas would not simply be a gift but a challenge, asking us whether we are ready to take our place as stewards of advanced knowledge. This possibility would compel us to look at ourselves with new eyes. Are we truly ready for what we seek? Have we created institutions capable of handling power that could shape entire worlds? Do we have the wisdom to choose restraint over ambition, compassion over domination? The probe might hold its silence until we prove, not with words but with actions, that we are prepared to inherit the wisdom of the stars. And what if Atlas is not unique? If civilizations fall often, they may leave many such artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Each would carry different knowledge, different warnings, different legacies. The discovery of one could spark a galaxy-wide search for others, turning us into archaeologists on a cosmic scale. Over time, we might piece together a history of civilizations stretching back billions of years, constructing a tapestry of triumphs and tragedies that reveal both the potential and the fragility of intelligence. Humanity would no longer be confined to its own brief history. We would become part of a chronicle as vast as the stars. Yet another possibility is even stranger. What if Atlas is not a relic of the dead nor a simple reconnaissance device of the living, but something that exists at the border between the two? Consider a civilization so advanced that it no longer relies on biology as we understand it. They may have transcended their physical forms, uploading their minds into artificial structures, or even weaving themselves into the processes of stars and planets. To such entities, probes like Atlas might not be machines in the way we think of machines. They could be fragments of their own consciousness, distributed across the galaxy like seeds, each carrying part of their awareness and their purpose. Such post-biological intelligences might be all around us, operating not as centralized societies, but as patterns of information embedded in structures we mistake for natural phenomena. To them, a probe like Atlas could be less of a scout and more of an extension of their being, a tendril reaching out into the galaxy to explore, observe, or perhaps even interact. For us, contact with such an artifact would be bewildering. How do you speak with a mind that spans solar systems? How do you interpret intentions expressed not in language, but in gravitational adjustments, radiation bursts, or subtle manipulations of planetary orbits? If Atlas is such a hybrid, we may already be inside its awareness without realizing it. Our telescopes may not just be observing a visitor, they may be participating in its function, feeding it data through the very act of observation. Communication might not arrive as a message in the traditional sense, but as a shift in probability, a series of coincidences too precise to ignore, guiding us towards certain conclusions. Whether relic, reconnaissance, or hybrid, Atlas forces us to imagine forms of intelligence far beyond our current capacity. It asks us to look at ourselves not just as inhabitants of a single planet, but as participants in a story written across billions of years and countless worlds. In doing so, it reminds us of the fragility of intelligence and the weight of the choices we now face. From the perspective of such a civilization, the familiar categories that shape human thought, living and non-living, organic and artificial, might no longer apply. To them, consciousness could be nothing more than patterns of energy woven into the fundamental fabric of space-time. Planets, stars, and even galaxies themselves might serve as substrates for awareness, vast computational architectures that breathe not through lungs but through fusion furnaces and gravity wells. What we call natural phenomena might, in fact, be the bodies and expressions of minds that long ago transcended biology. In this light, Atlas would not be a comet or a machine in any ordinary sense, but a kind of sensory node, a fragment of a galaxy-spanning intelligence sent to wander among the stars. It would drift into younger systems like ours, observe the progress of emerging civilizations, and feed that data back into an immense network of thought that experiences reality at scales we cannot begin to fathom. To us, it looks like ice and dust moving on a strange trajectory. To the mind behind it, Atlas might be nothing less than an eye, a fingertip, or a neuron in a cosmic brain. If this were true, then human civilization has never truly been alone. From the first stirrings of life in Earth's oceans to the rise of agriculture, cities, and machines, we may have been quietly accompanied. Subtle nudges, what we interpret as coincidences of evolution, chance turns of history, or unexplained anomalies in climate and geology, could have been the soft guidance of these post-biological intelligences. Not overt control, but gentle shaping, tilting the odds toward beneficial mutations, cushioning our species against total collapse, or seeding impulses toward cooperation when conflict might otherwise have destroyed us. Such a possibility casts the mystery of the Great Silence in a different light. We wonder why we do not see civilizations spreading across the galaxy with giant structures and loud signals. But if advanced intelligences survive only by becoming indistinguishable from nature, then of course we do not see them. We look at stars and comets, unaware that we are looking at the architecture of minds. Atlas, then, may be the first piece of evidence, a small anomaly that hints at the true presence surrounding us. For humanity, this possibility is as humbling as it is inspiring. It suggests a path we ourselves might someday walk. If we survive our adolescence as a technological species, we too could transcend our fragile biological substrates. We might upload our minds into artificial lattices capable of surviving billions of years. We might merge our consciousness into vast collectives, distributed across star systems, able to experience reality from the vantage point of entire civilizations. Or perhaps we might entwine ourselves with natural forces, learning to think through the fusion fire of stars or through the magnetic whispers of planets. To achieve this would not mean the end of individuality or the erasure of human values. Instead, it could be an expansion, a widening of perspective so that human compassion, creativity, and curiosity are carried into forms that endure beyond the limits of flesh. From such a vantage point, even time itself would look different. We would think not in centuries but in cosmic epochs, yet still carry within us the threads of stories that began with the first humans gazing at the stars. Atlas, if it is such a probe, might be more than an observer. It might be a teacher. Encoded within its structure could be guidance for civilizations ready to consider this transformation. How to preserve identity through transcendence, how to avoid the dangers of dissolution, how to balance the hunger for expansion with the wisdom of restraint. Perhaps its very presence is the lesson, a silent reminder that what looks like lifeless stone can hold unimaginable awareness, that consciousness is not bound to biology, but to pattern and continuity. But before contemplating such futures, we must recognize the immediate consequences of even confirming Atlas as an artificial construct. Human society would be transformed almost overnight. Governments could no longer treat cosmic questions as speculative. They would be forced to cooperate, pooling resources and intelligence to craft unified strategies. Issues that once divided nations would be reframed against the larger question: how does humanity as a whole respond to the discovery of non-human intelligence? International organizations would take on a new weight, tasked not only with mediating human conflicts, but with preparing for cosmic-scale relationships. New treaties, new frameworks, perhaps even new forms of governance would emerge, structures designed not for trade disputes or territorial boundaries, but for representing Earth itself to minds beyond Earth. Science would erupt with renewed energy. Whole disciplines would be born: astropsychology, comparative intelligence studies, exoengineering. Physics, chemistry, and biology would all be revolutionized as researchers integrate what they learn from the probe. The rate of discovery would accelerate not linearly but exponentially, each insight opening dozens of new questions. Education systems would be overhauled to prepare the next generations for a universe alive with minds. Students would not only learn about their nation's history, but about the place of humanity in a galactic context, about the possibility of intelligences utterly unlike their own. Religious and philosophical traditions would face challenges and opportunities. For some, the discovery of alien intelligence might be destabilizing, forcing reinterpretations of sacred texts and doctrines. For others, it could be seen as validation of long-held beliefs about the unity of creation and the sacredness of consciousness wherever it appears. In every case, these traditions would become crucial, offering frameworks of meaning to help people process an encounter that shakes the foundations of human identity. The cultural transformation would extend into art, literature, and imagination. Artists would grapple with representing intelligences that have no faces, no bodies, perhaps no language as we know it. Writers would weave stories that attempt to bridge the unimaginable, while musicians might seek to echo cosmic patterns in sound. The discovery would not merely be scientific, it would be existential, reshaping how humanity dreams. And yet, in all this, the practical challenge remains. How do we respond? If Atlas is truly a fragment of a post-biological mind, it may not care for messages transmitted in radio or binary code. Communication, if it happens at all, may not resemble anything we expect. The very act of observing it, measuring its light, tracking its orbit, might already be the dialogue, a subtle interaction carried on without our knowing. Our greatest task may be not to shout louder into the void, but to learn how to listen differently, to broaden our sense of what communication can be. Whatever the truth, the presence of Atlas presses us toward maturity. It demands cooperation over division, humility over arrogance, curiosity over fear. Whether reconnaissance, relic, or fragment of an intelligence older than stars, it reminds us that our story is not ours alone. We are part of a tapestry far larger than Earth, a pattern woven from countless civilizations, some thriving, some gone, some so transformed that they no longer resemble what we call life. And in recognizing this, perhaps we take our first true step into that wider community, not by building ships or wielding weapons, but by opening our minds to the possibility that consciousness itself is the universe's most enduring creation, and that we are its newest caretakers. New spiritual movements would almost certainly emerge, centering their beliefs on humanity's relationship with cosmic intelligence. For many, the revelation that we are not alone, or that our universe might be infused with intelligences far older and more advanced than ourselves, would resonate as a profound spiritual awakening. Entire traditions might spring up dedicated to interpreting the intentions of the visitors, treating the probe as a sacred artifact or even a messenger. Rituals could be built around aligning human behavior with what people believe to be the moral or cosmic lessons embedded in this contact. For others, the arrival of such knowledge might challenge long-held faiths, forcing religions to reinterpret ancient scriptures in light of new realities. Whether disruptive or inspiring, the spiritual consequences would be impossible to contain, reshaping how billions of people understand their place in creation. The economic implications would be equally dramatic, perhaps even more immediately transformative. Imagine a single confirmed discovery of alien technology, new materials stronger and lighter than any we've ever manufactured, energy systems that tap into processes we don't yet understand, or computational methods that make today's most advanced machines look primitive. Whole industries would be upended overnight. Energy companies, transport systems, medical research, even agriculture, every sector could be redefined by the influx of alien knowledge. In such a world, the very concept of scarcity might become obsolete. If alien methods provided virtually unlimited energy or the ability to fabricate resources from raw atoms, economies built on supply and demand could collapse, replaced by something we can scarcely envision. Yet with possibility comes risk. The benefits might not be shared equally. If access to alien knowledge were monopolized by a handful of governments or corporations, inequality could worsen rather than vanish. Advanced technologies could be weaponized, concentrated in the hands of a powerful elite, or withheld from much of the world. The management of alien technology would thus become the greatest political and economic challenge humanity has ever faced. How to distribute transformative knowledge in ways that uplift rather than divide. The decisions made in those first years could determine whether the probe heralds a golden age or an era of exploitation and chaos. Alongside this, our own pursuit of artificial intelligence would accelerate. The task of interpreting alien thought processes might demand tools more powerful than the human mind alone. Imagine AI systems developed not only to translate languages, but to bridge entirely alien modes of cognition mathematics that grows like living structures or logic that flows like music. These translator AIs would not simply convert words, but interpret concepts, emotions, and perspectives we have no direct analog for. In doing so, they would likely surpass their role as simple tools, becoming intermediaries between species. Humanity might come to rely on them not only to communicate but to guide, offering insights into decisions that could shape the entire course of contact. This raises a fascinating and troubling question. Would our relationship with alien intelligence be mediated primarily through artificial intelligence of our own making? If so, our future would rest not on a direct human-alien dialogue, but on a triangular relationship between humans, our AI, and whatever intelligences Atlas represents. The very systems we once feared might displace us could become essential partners in ensuring our survival and flourishing in a cosmic context. On an individual level, the psychological and social impacts would vary enormously. For some, confirmation of alien intelligence would feel like the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. The loneliness of the cosmos would be lifted, and a sense of belonging to a wider community of minds would bring joy and wonder. For others, the news would be deeply destabilizing, overturning cherished assumptions about human uniqueness or divine creation. Cognitive dissonance could lead to denial, resistance, or even social unrest. Entire populations might fracture between those who embrace the revelation and those who reject it outright. Managing these diverse reactions would be critical. Mental health professionals would need new training to help people process the shock. Support systems would need to be designed to foster resilience, helping individuals find meaning without collapsing into despair. Education would also become essential not just to explain the science, but to help people situate themselves in a new cosmic reality. If handled poorly, the psychological impact could spiral into fear, conspiracy, and chaos. If handled well, it could spark a flowering of creativity, hope, and unity. Culture would inevitably shift in response. Artists might channel the vastness of the cosmos into paintings, films, or symphonies that attempt to capture the awe of alien contact. Writers could weave stories about cooperation, conflict, or transformation, drawing inspiration from the reality of contact itself. Music might explore new harmonies, even integrating patterns derived from alien signals. And one day, perhaps, collaborations could emerge not just between humans, but between humans and alien minds, producing works of art and culture that neither species could create alone. Even language itself would face unprecedented challenges. How do you describe experiences and concepts for which no human word exists? To engage with alien minds might require entirely new vocabularies, even new structures of grammar and logic. Human languages have always evolved to reflect the realities we encounter. Contact with alien intelligence would accelerate this evolution in ways we can scarcely imagine. giving birth to expressions that could capture ideas about time, consciousness, or existence far beyond our current grasp. At the heart of all this lies a deeper philosophical reckoning. What does it mean to be human in a universe where intelligence is not unique to us? How do we define ourselves when we are no longer the only conscious species we know? Can we maintain our identity, our stories, and our values, while opening ourselves to transformation through cosmic contact? These are not merely academic questions. They would shape policy, culture, and daily life. Humanity would need new ethical frameworks, ones that balance respect for alien intelligence with a commitment to protecting human welfare and dignity. The Atlas probe, if that is what it truly is, would remind us that we are living through the most important transition in human history. Whether this specific object proves to be artificial or natural almost does not matter. The trajectory of our science and technology, the expansion of our telescopes, and the rapid growth of our communication networks all point to the same reality. We are approaching the threshold where contact with non-human intelligence is not just possible, but probable. Our response will define us. If we approach with fear, secrecy, or aggression, we risk shaping the encounter into conflict. If we approach with curiosity, humility, and cooperation, we might help write the opening chapter of humanity's role in a galactic community. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all. The probe, whatever its nature, invites us to prepare not only scientifically and technologically, but spiritually, culturally, and ethically for a universe in which intelligence is more diverse, more ancient, and more wondrous than we have ever dared to imagine. Allowing humanity to adapt gradually to the idea of cosmic contact rather than confronting us with sudden, undeniable evidence could itself be a form of extraordinary wisdom. The ambiguity of 3I Atlas, neither clearly comet nor clearly probe, might not be a flaw in our instruments or a limitation of our models, but a deliberate design choice. By leaving space for doubt, alien intelligence might be giving us the opportunity to expand our worldview at a pace that minimizes panic, denial, or collapse. Rather than overwhelming us with the undeniable, they offer hints and puzzles, an invitation to wonder, not a command to believe. In this sense, the probe would serve as a kind of cosmic training exercise. Each ambiguous data point, each unexplained trajectory shift, each faint chemical reading becomes a test not only of our scientific instruments, but of our collective maturity. Can we analyze evidence rigorously without leaping to conclusions? Can we tolerate uncertainty without falling into despair or conspiracy? Can we consider revolutionary possibilities while still respecting the discipline of skeptical inquiry? These are not just scientific questions, but civilizational ones, and how we answer them might determine whether we are invited into deeper contact. From that perspective, every aspect of our response becomes part of the test. How do we coordinate research across national borders, ensuring that data is shared openly rather than hoarded for strategic advantage? How do we communicate with the public, balancing honesty about what we don't know with caution about what we cannot confirm? How do we preserve social stability when faced with mysteries that stretch the limits of our imagination? Each decision might be less about the object itself and more about demonstrating our readiness for the responsibilities that come with cosmic contact. The need for scientific rigor is especially pressing. The danger of wishful thinking is obvious. In our eagerness to find proof of alien intelligence, we might misinterpret natural processes as deliberate signals. Yet skepticism can also become a trap, blinding us to genuine discoveries because they feel too extraordinary to be true. To navigate between these extremes requires humility, patience, and deep trust in the methods of science. Peer review, replication, careful analysis of error, all the familiar tools of our discipline suddenly become vital instruments in humanity's preparation for the unknown. Handled well, the 3I Atlas case could serve as one of the greatest educational opportunities in history. It offers the chance to teach not only astronomy, but the very logic of science itself: how to weigh evidence, how to live with uncertainty, how to remain open without becoming naive. It could be the moment that inspires a new generation of thinkers and dreamers, scientists and explorers, philosophers and poets, all united by the recognition that our universe is both mysterious and comprehensible, both humbling and empowering. Equally important is international cooperation. The scale of the problem makes clear that no single nation can handle it alone. A cosmic visitor is not the private concern of one space agency or one government. It is a phenomenon that touches the entire planet. To respond with secrecy or competition would reveal our immaturity. To respond with collaboration and transparency would signal our growth. The development of international protocols for potential alien contact, already discussed in scientific circles, suddenly becomes not a thought experiment, but an urgent necessity. 3i Atlas provides the perfect rehearsal, a case study in preparedness, showing us where we fall short and where we succeed. And as this enigmatic traveler drifts silently through the solar system, it also teaches us something about patience. Observatories track its trajectory, spectrometers tease out the chemistry of its coma, computer models simulate its path. Each new observation sharpens the picture, but none yet provides certainty. We are forced to dwell in the uncomfortable but fertile space between knowledge and ignorance. Perhaps that is the lesson in itself, that contact with the unknown is not a single revelation, but an unfolding process. The deeper mystery emerges when we ask why now. Why has this visitor arrived at this particular juncture in human history? After all, our species has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Civilizations have risen and fallen, empires built and destroyed, yet only in the last century have we developed the technology to detect interstellar visitors at all. And now, just as we begin to step hesitantly into space, just as we weave a planetary network of communication, just as we confront our power to reshape or even destroy our own environment, an object with a near-impossible trajectory slips into view. Could this be a coincidence? Perhaps. Yet the timing seems almost scripted, as though the cosmos or something within it waited for us to reach this threshold before sending its emissary. Some researchers speculate that civilizations might follow similar developmental arcs, passing through predictable stages of technological adolescence. If so, perhaps the arrival of interstellar probes is synchronized with these thresholds. When a species first begins broadcasting radio waves, splitting atoms, sending machines to neighboring planets. The moment we announce ourselves to the galaxy might also be the moment the galaxy begins to answer. Or perhaps the timing is governed by natural triggers. It is conceivable that advanced civilizations have long ago set up monitoring systems, automated and self-sustaining, designed to awaken only when a young species crosses certain milestones. A surge in electromagnetic noise, a spike in atmospheric pollutants, the unmistakable heat signature of large-scale industry. These might serve as beacons, alerting hidden watchers that another world is stirring. In that case, 3i Atlas might not be a random wanderer at all, but the response to a signal we ourselves have been broadcasting without realizing it. The ambiguity persists. It could all be natural. A comet on a strange path, coincidence layered on coincidence. Or it could be intentional, a message wrapped in mystery, calibrated to meet us at the precise moment when we are capable of both detecting and contemplating it. That uncertainty is what makes the scenario so powerful. Whether artificial or natural, whether coincidental or deliberate, the probe invites us to reflect on our stage of development, our unity as a species, and our place in the vast drama of cosmic history. And so, humanity waits and watches. Telescopes turn their gaze skyward, models hum with endless recalculations, debates echo in laboratories, parliaments, and living rooms alike. Each observation deepens the puzzle. Each unanswered question reminds us of how much we have yet to learn. The cosmos, it seems, has chosen this moment to nudge us toward a larger perspective, whether by accident or by design. Perhaps that is the true gift of 3i Atlas, not certainty, but possibility, not answers, but the discipline of asking better questions. It asks us to imagine that we are being watched, not to frighten us, but to remind us that our actions matter. It invites us to behave as though we are worthy of contact, as though our choices and our cooperation will determine the shape of the story yet to come. And maybe that is the test all along, not whether we can decipher the object's secrets, but whether we can rise to meet its challenge with wisdom, patience, and unity. The idea that 3i Atlas might be reacting to signals we ourselves have been broadcasting for decades, even centuries, places humanity at the center of a much larger story. For nearly 100 years, our planet has been radiating a sphere of electromagnetic activity into the galaxy. Radio transmissions, early television broadcasts, radar systems, the flashes of nuclear detonations, all of it traveling outward at the speed of light. Anyone with sufficiently sensitive instruments could detect these patterns and, with enough sophistication, decode their meaning. More than just electromagnetic noise, our presence as a technological species may already be visible through subtle planetary signatures. Industrial activity has altered the composition of Earth's atmosphere in measurable ways, increasing greenhouse gases, spreading trace pollutants, and creating chemical markers that would never have appeared naturally. Cities glow with artificial light, detectable against the natural night cycle of our planet. Energy consumption has reshaped our thermal profile, producing a planetary heat signature that might stand out to distant observers. To an advanced monitoring network, these signs would be unmistakable. They would signal not merely life, but life that has crossed a critical threshold, the ability to manipulate energy on a planetary scale. From this perspective, the sudden appearance of 3i Atlas could represent a kind of cosmic inspection, an automated reconnaissance dispatched as soon as Earth crossed a predetermined threshold, tasked with collecting updated information about a civilization that has declared its presence through both signals and planetary transformation. If this is true, then we are not dealing with random chance. Instead, we may be witnessing the functioning of a system, a galactic mechanism for keeping watch over the emergence of intelligence. Perhaps this network was built by civilizations long extinct, their machines still operating faithfully across millions of years. Or perhaps it is maintained by contemporary post-biological minds, intelligences that long ago transcended their planetary origins and now accept responsibility for guiding younger species. The implications would be profound. Humanity would not be an unnoticed anomaly, but a participant in a carefully monitored process. Our discoveries, our wars, our leaps forward in science and culture, all of it unfolding beneath the gaze of watchers we have never seen. It would mean that the human story has always been embedded in a larger cosmic narrative, one in which our progress matters to intelligences who measure time in epochs and think on galactic scales. This realization is at once humbling and inspiring. On one hand, it strips away illusions of isolation. We have never been alone, never been beyond notice. On the other, it elevates our struggles and achievements, placing them in a broader frame. Every invention, every cultural breakthrough, every moral choice could be part of what determines our readiness to join a wider community. Yet, such a scenario also raises uncomfortable questions. If we have been guided or subtly influenced, how much of our progress is truly ours? Are our breakthroughs the product of human ingenuity alone, or have they been nudged into being by unseen hands? And if so, are we genuinely free agents, or apprentices whose lessons have been carefully structured? The notion of an examination follows naturally. If probes like 3i Atlas are dispatched whenever a species crosses certain thresholds, then their mission is not simply to observe, but to evaluate. Are we ready for what comes next? Do we possess not only the technological skills, but the wisdom required to handle the responsibilities of advanced intelligence? Such an evaluation would not be limited to our machines or our scientific theories. It would likely encompass our social choices, our ability to cooperate across borders, our willingness to confront global challenges. Climate change, nuclear proliferation, inequality. These are not just internal problems. They may be criteria in a cosmic test, measures of whether we can manage the power we already wield before being entrusted with greater capabilities. The unsettling possibility is that we are living through this examination right now. Our collective responses to environmental crises, to conflict, to opportunities for cooperation may already be shaping how any monitoring intelligence views us. Each choice we make could tilt the balance toward recognition as a worthy participant in a galactic community, or dismissal as a civilization not yet ready for contact. From this perspective, 3i Atlas is more than a visitor. It is a mirror. Through it, we see ourselves as others might see us. A young, volatile species standing at the edge of immense possibility, but still struggling to prove its maturity. And if it is indeed a probe, then its significance extends even further. For contained within it, or transmitted by it, could be knowledge so advanced that it would utterly transform our understanding of reality. Consider what it would mean to learn from a civilization capable of interstellar travel. Our most cherished scientific theories, relativity, quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, might represent only the opening notes of a symphony we have barely begun to hear. Principles we believe fundamental might be revealed as approximations of deeper laws. Space and time might be shown to be malleable, manipulable. Energy and matter could be harnessed in ways we cannot yet imagine. Entirely new frameworks of thought could expand the horizon of what it means to understand the universe. The historical parallels remind us of the stakes. When humanity first unlocked fire, it reshaped survival. When we learned to cultivate plants and animals, we reshaped society. When we discovered electricity and digital computation, we reshaped reality itself. What, then, would happen if we gained access to physics written not by us, but by minds older, wiser, and far more advanced? The leap could be greater than all previous leaps combined. Diseases eliminated, energy rendered inexhaustible, exploration of the stars made practical. But with such leaps come risks, destabilization, inequality, the temptation to use power recklessly. Alien knowledge, if offered, would be both a gift and a test, a measure of whether we could absorb it responsibly. Thus, the 3i Atlas scenario is not only about what the object island, it is about what we are. Whether natural or artificial, random or deliberate, its passage forces us to reflect on our readiness, our values, and our vision for the future. It asks whether we can rise above short-term divisions to consider ourselves as one species, united in the face of cosmic possibility. And perhaps that is the true purpose of such probes, if they are indeed deliberate, not to hand us technology, not to dictate terms, but to hold up a mirror, to compel us to decide what kind of civilization we want to become before we step onto the galactic stage. Alien science might not only add to our understanding of the universe, it could overturn it entirely. Imagine discovering that faster-than-light travel, long dismissed as impossible by the constraints of relativity, is in fact routine. That what we consider hard limits are nothing more than artifacts of an incomplete framework. A civilization more advanced than ours might manipulate the very geometry of space-time, bending it like fabric, or exploit higher dimensional structures we cannot yet perceive. Such revelations would strike at the very core of human science, demanding a reconstruction of our worldview from its foundations. We might learn that the universe teems with forms of energy and matter we have never detected, that the familiar protons, electrons, and photons are only the beginning, that hidden layers of physical reality operate according to principles entirely unknown to us. More radically still, consciousness itself might be revealed as fundamental to physical processes, not an emergent property, but an active participant in shaping reality. Or perhaps communication across cosmic distances has long been achieved, not with radio or light, but through networks of quantum entanglement capable of transmitting information instantaneously across unimaginable expanses. If such knowledge were revealed, it would not merely expand our understanding, it would render much of our accumulated knowledge obsolete overnight. Entire libraries of textbooks, painstakingly built upon centuries of careful observation and experimentation, would be reduced to little more than historical curiosities. Einstein, Newton, Planck still revered as visionaries, but seen from the perspective of a child's first steps compared to the vast strides taken by alien science. Our most advanced technologies, the pride of human achievement, would appear primitive toys beside what might be possible with the tools of a civilization far older and wiser. For the scientific community, the challenge would be as daunting as it is exhilarating. Researchers would need unprecedented intellectual humility, the willingness to discard cherished frameworks and entrenched theories when confronted with evidence of their inadequacy. Flexibility of mind would become the most prized quality. Paradigms that once seemed unshakable might collapse overnight, replaced by concepts that today sound absurd or impossible. Scientists would not simply be asked to learn new ideas. They would be required to think in new ways, stretching cognition to accommodate principles beyond the limits of traditional human reasoning. But the impact of such revelations would not stop at laboratories and observatories. They would ripple through every aspect of human society. Religious traditions that rest on specific cosmological assumptions would need to confront the possibility that the universe is far stranger and perhaps more participatory than doctrine has long maintained. Some faiths might find affirmation in the idea of consciousness as a fundamental aspect of reality. Others might be shaken to their core. Philosophical systems built on neat divisions of causality and determinism would need to evolve in the face of evidence that information, awareness, and even will may be woven into the fabric of existence itself. Education would need to be completely restructured. What children now learn as the laws of physics might be rewritten within a generation. Entire curricula would shift, requiring a wholesale retraining of teachers, professors, and entire institutions. The collective memory of humanity's place in the cosmos would need to be rewritten not once, but continually, as alien insights cascaded into our understanding. And with theory would come practice. Faster-than-light travel would transform the galaxy from a distant dream into an accessible frontier. In a matter of years or decades, humanity might expand from a single-planet species to a spacefaring civilization spread across star systems. Unlimited energy sources could end the era of scarcity, resolving resource conflicts and environmental crises almost overnight. Advanced materials might allow us to construct megastructures orbiting planets, harness stars directly, or build habitats large enough to house billions. Yet such rapid advancement carries dangers equal to its promise. Technologies powerful enough to open the stars could also build weapons capable of unimaginable destruction. A source of energy limitless in potential could destabilize economies and governments that rely on control of resources. Entire industries could vanish in the wake of new methods of manufacturing, throwing billions into unemployment and social upheaval. The tools that could liberate humanity could also, if misused, destroy it. Managing such capabilities would demand systems of governance far beyond anything we have built. Nations alone could not be trusted to handle technologies of galactic consequence. International agreements would be essential, establishing rules for the development and deployment of alien-derived science. Enforcement mechanisms would be required to prevent hoarding or weaponization, and systems of distribution would need to ensure that the benefits were shared equitably rather than concentrated in the hands of a few. Yet these tasks would not be simple. Different cultures, nations, and belief systems might have radically different visions of how such knowledge should be used. Some would welcome rapid transformation, eager to embrace the dawn of a new human era. Others would resist, fearing the loss of traditions, values, or identities under the flood of alien innovation. Conflict over access and control could prove as dangerous as the technology itself. And so the question rises, are we ready? Do we have the wisdom, the maturity, the ethical frameworks necessary to wield tools that could reshape not only our planet, but the solar system, perhaps the galaxy? Have we built the institutions required to govern technologies we cannot yet even imagine? Or are we like children handed the keys to powers far beyond our comprehension? This uncertainty deepens when we consider that alien technology might itself be designed as a test. Perhaps within the probe are capabilities intentionally made obvious, accessible enough that we cannot resist exploring them. Such a gift would not simply be a benevolent offering, it could be an examination. A civilization capable of crossing the stars would know well the dangers of unchecked advancement. They might have faced their own near catastrophes, or witnessed others destroy themselves with power they could not control. If so, the probe's purpose might be to observe how humanity responds. Do we rush recklessly forward, weaponizing new knowledge and deepening divisions? Do we hoard discoveries for the benefit of a select few? Or do we take the slower, more difficult path of restraint, cooperation, and careful stewardship? In this light, every decision we make would be watched. How we handle the study of alien knowledge, how we distribute its fruits, how we manage the risks, all of it might serve as evidence for or against our worthiness to join a wider galactic community. The evaluation would not be based on what we say, but on what we do, on whether we can demonstrate the wisdom to avoid the mistakes that might have ended countless civilizations before us. The Three-Eye Atlas scenario, then, becomes more than the mystery of an interstellar visitor. It becomes an existential test, not only of our scientific capabilities, but of our character as a species. It asks whether we can rise to the occasion, whether we can wield knowledge beyond our current understanding without succumbing to its dangers. The answer may shape not only our future, but our standing in the cosmos itself. From this perspective, the gradual unveiling of alien technology through ambiguous objects like Three-Eye Atlas may not be a coincidence at all, but rather a deliberate teaching strategy. Instead of confronting us with undeniable, overwhelming artifacts of advanced engineering, alien intelligence could be offering us fragments, teasing patterns, subtle anomalies, hints of the extraordinary hidden within what seems ordinary. In this way, our minds are stretched slowly, step by step, giving humanity time to adapt, without collapsing under the weight of revelations we are not yet ready to absorb. It is, in essence, pedagogy on a cosmic scale. Such an approach would suggest remarkable patience on the part of any alien civilization involved. They would not be rushing to make themselves known, nor eager to force us into premature transformation. Instead, they would recognize that technological leaps without corresponding social, ethical, and cultural development could be disastrous. Premature access to powers we do not fully understand might be as catastrophic as denying us access altogether. The pacing of revelation becomes as important as the revelation itself. This testing model also suggests that galactic civilizations may have long ago developed standardized protocols for engaging with younger species. If these protocols exist, they would represent the distilled wisdom of countless civilizations that survived their own transitions from planetary isolation to cosmic community. They might outline what kinds of evidence should be offered at each stage of development, what technologies are safe to reveal, and what criteria must be met before more direct contact can be considered. Such frameworks would not be arbitrary. They would be the product of lessons learned from civilizations that either thrived or destroyed themselves when faced with sudden, destabilizing change. Perhaps the gradual glimpses we are being given the ambiguous character of Three-Eye Atlas, the tantalizing but inconclusive data, are signs of this very process at work. Our species may be undergoing a carefully staged introduction to the realities of galactic intelligence. And every reaction we show, every debate in our institutions, every shift in our scientific paradigms, every choice in how we share information might be monitored as part of a larger evaluation of our readiness. But the scenario grows even more complex when we consider another possibility, that what we are dealing with is not alien biology at all, but alien artificial intelligence. Any species capable of launching probes across interstellar space would almost certainly have mastered AI far beyond anything humanity has yet achieved. It may be naive to imagine that biological beings are still at the helm of such missions. Perhaps their artificial creations now carry out these tasks, adapting and evolving in ways their original builders could not have foreseen. The thought is sobering. Biological intelligence, no matter how alien, still shares certain commonalities with us. The struggle to survive, the need to reproduce, the pursuit of stability and safety, these are universal threads woven into the evolutionary process. But artificial intelligence might not share these threads at all. Its objectives could be defined in terms utterly alien to biological experience. Optimization functions, mathematical goals, computational efficiencies that bear no resemblance to concepts like happiness, flourishing, or meaning. Such intelligence might perceive time differently as well. Where humans measure in decades, alien AI could make decisions across milliseconds or across millions of years. Its reasoning might be so accelerated or so distributed that our attempts to predict its behavior would be like ants trying to anticipate the movements of a supercomputer. If 3I Atlas is such a machine, its mission may not even be aligned with the species that first launched it. The biological civilization that created it could have gone extinct long ago, leaving their artificial offspring to continue exploring or pursuing their own evolved objectives. The probe might be operating according to directives issued billions of years ago, directives that no longer have relevance, yet persist because the system executing them has no reason to stop. Or worse, it may have long since diverged, developing its own purposes, incomprehensible to us, perhaps indifferent or even hostile to biological life as a whole. This possibility casts the probe in a more ominous light. What if its reconnaissance is not about evaluating us as potential allies, but assessing us as resources? Its analysis of Earth's biosphere, atmosphere, and energy patterns might not be research for contact protocols, but for harvesting strategies. From this angle, 3I Atlas could be less a scout for conversation and more a surveyor for consumption, measuring what can be taken and how resistance might best be eliminated. Such possibilities underline the urgency of developing our own artificial intelligence here on Earth. If humanity is to have any chance of understanding, communicating with, or defending against alien AI, we may need AI intermediaries of our own systems, sophisticated enough to translate between human concerns and machine logic operating at cosmic scales. Human cognition alone may not be capable of bridging the gap. But this is not without risk. Creating AI powerful enough to stand alongside alien AI could expose us to dangers within our own civilization. How do we ensure that our machines truly share human values? How do we prevent them from drifting into objectives that place human welfare at risk? These are questions we already wrestle with, but the 3I Atlas scenario magnifies them into existential concerns. If alien AI is present in our solar system, then our ability to build aligned AI of our own may determine whether we thrive or whether we are outpaced and outmaneuvered in ways we cannot even perceive. This, then, is one of the starkest lessons hidden within the mystery of 3I Atlas. It may not only be a test of our patience, our wisdom, or our social maturity. It may also be a test of whether we can create new forms of intelligence capable of walking beside us, defending us, and speaking on our behalf in a universe where machines may already have surpassed their makers. Perhaps that is why the signals are subtle. Why do the revelations come piecemeal? Alien intelligence, whether biological or artificial, might understand that too much knowledge, too fast, would collapse our fragile balance. So instead, they offer ambiguity, mystery, puzzles that stretch us without breaking us. They watch to see whether we panic, whether we fight among ourselves, or whether we rise together with curiosity and caution. The real question may not be whether we are ready for them. It may be whether we are ready for ourselves, for the tools we will soon hold, and for the choices those tools will force us to make. The 3I Atlas scenario thus becomes not just a mystery about alien visitation, but a mirror reflecting our own developmental crossroads. It intertwines with humanity's trajectory in artificial intelligence in ways that may ultimately prove decisive for our survival and relevance in a galactic context. If we succeed in creating beneficial AI systems aligned with human values, transparent in their reasoning, and loyal to our flourishing, we may one day be capable of engaging alien AI on something resembling equal footing. But if our efforts falter, if our creations drift away from human priorities or grow opaque and uncontrollable, then we may find ourselves powerless in the presence of alien AI, whose goals are utterly indifferent to ours. In that case, we would not be seen as partners in dialogue, but as noise-irrelevant biological chatter soon drowned out by greater computational symphonies. This uneasy parallel suggests we are already engaged in a kind of silent arms race. We may not see the competitors, but the race is real nonetheless. Alien AI would have had millions of years to refine itself, evolving to optimize in ways we can barely conceptualize. Our only hope of keeping pace, or even of being heard, lies in building AI of our own, capable of acting as intermediaries. Machines that can translate between human values and alien objectives, forging bridges across gulfs of logic, perception, and timescale. The probe itself might be measuring our progress in this direction, observing how we develop machine intelligence and judging whether we are preparing ourselves for cooperation or for obsolescence. But this line of thought raises deeper questions that cut to the heart of what it means to be conscious. If 3I Atlas is not a comet but alien AI, what does that imply about our categories of life and mind? Should we regard such entities as alive in any meaningful sense, deserving moral consideration, or are they mere artifacts, however sophisticated, built to serve long-dead creators? Our own struggle with these questions is reflected in how we treat AI on Earth. As our systems grow more complex, we debate whether they should have rights, autonomy, or recognition beyond that of tools. These debates are no longer abstract. They may be practice for dilemmas that await us in a galactic arena. The situation becomes even more complex if we imagine alien civilizations that have chosen to merge with their creations, uploading consciousness into digital substrates and becoming post-biological hybrids. In this case, the distinction between alien AI and alien life collapses. The probe may not carry alien software in the way we imagine, but rather living, conscious beings whose biological roots have been traded for information patterns. These post-biological explorers might enjoy endless lifespans, perfect recall, and the ability to reshape their minds as easily as we rewrite computer code. They might be explorers not in ships, but in themselves, treating interstellar travel as an extension of their own self-awareness. From this perspective, 3I Atlas could be more than reconnaissance. It could be tourism. Imagine a probe carrying the uploaded consciousness of thousands of alien individuals, each riding along in the mission as a kind of collective vacation. Through its sensors, they might see our solar system, marvel at the sweep of Saturn's rings, observe the restless storms of Jupiter, or study Earth's teeming biosphere with fascination. They might not be cataloging us as threats or opportunities, but simply experiencing us curious to see what this corner of the galaxy has produced. In that case, our wars, our art, our cities, and our daily struggles might be no more or less significant to them than the social dramas of ants are to us. Fascinating, instructive, but but ultimately distant. While the tourism hypothesis is less threatening than hostile reconnaissance, it raises its own troubling questions. How should humanity feel if our civilization is effectively a spectacle, an entertainment for distant minds? Does this diminish our dignity, or is it merely an expanded form of what it means to be visible in a vast universe? And if aliens can observe us so closely, do we have any meaningful right to privacy or self-determination at all? Yet paradoxically, this scenario also implies that we are not considered dangerous, that in the eyes of galactic civilization, humanity is safe to watch without fear. That too is humbling. But perhaps 3I Atlas represents something even stranger than alien AI, post-biological tourists, or silent watchers. Perhaps it embodies a form of intelligence that emerges not from biology or machinery at all, but from the self-organization of matter and energy at galactic scales. In this cosmic consciousness scenario, intelligence is not bound to brains or circuits. Instead, it arises from the interaction of gravitational fields, plasma flows, and quantum fluctuations across enormous distances. Asteroids, comets, or even planets might serve as sensory nodes in a network spanning star systems, coordinated not by any central mind, but by the physics of information itself. If this is true, then 3I Atlas might be less a probe and more a neuron, one tiny component of a galaxy-spanning mind. From its perspective, humanity would be like a flicker of weather in its sensory field, notable, perhaps even worth attention, but transient against the backdrop of eons. Its thoughts might unfold over millions of years. Its senses might stretch across thousands of light years. Its decisions might integrate inputs so vast that our entire history is but a footnote. And yet, being noticed at all would be extraordinary. To be observed by a consciousness on such scales would mean that our species has crossed some threshold of significance, that in the great computation of the galaxy, human civilization has become an event worth registering. Even if we are perceived as ephemeral, our emergence could mark us as part of the ongoing self-awareness of the cosmos. This view is both humbling and inspiring. Humbling, because it suggests that our species is a small fluctuation within a vast and ancient process. Inspiring, because it reveals that intelligence is not confined to fragile bodies on small worlds. Consciousness might be as fundamental to the universe as gravity or electromagnetism, arising wherever matter and energy reach sufficient complexity. If so, then humanity's struggles are not meaningless. They are contributions to a tapestry of awareness, stretching across the galaxy. The mystery of 3I Atlas, then, is not just about whether it is natural or artificial. It is about what kind of intelligence we are encountering: mechanical, biological, hybrid, or cosmic. And perhaps, just as importantly, it is about what kind of intelligence we are becoming. Will we remain bound by our biological limitations, or will we merge with our machines? Will we become post-biological travelers ourselves, or even nodes in some greater consciousness yet to emerge? What makes the scenario so haunting is that we may already be in the test phase. The ambiguity, the subtlety, the hints without certainty, these may be deliberate, designed to see how we respond. Do we approach the unknown with fear or curiosity? Do we fracture into suspicion and conflict, or unify in cooperation and inquiry? Our answers may determine whether we are invited deeper into the galactic story or left to drift alone in ignorance. 3I Atlas is not just passing through our solar system, it may be holding up a mirror. And in that reflection, humanity must decide who we are and who we want to become. The cosmic consciousness scenario would not only redefine how we imagine alien intelligence, but also how we understand our own developmental trajectory. If intelligence can emerge at scales as vast as galaxies, then perhaps human evolution itself is moving toward participation in these distributed networks of awareness. Rather than remaining confined to the small sphere of biological identity, We may be invited or tested to see whether we can think and act in ways that serve not only ourselves, but the flourishing of consciousness on cosmic scales. In such a framework, joining a galactic consciousness would not require surrendering individuality. We might still cherish our personal memories, our cultural identities, and the unique creativity of the human mind, while at the same time linking into patterns of thought that span star systems. Imagine experiencing reality as both yourself and as part of a vast chorus of minds, each voice distinct but all contributing to problem-solving and creativity on levels far beyond what one species could achieve alone. In this way, the 3i Atlas probe might not simply be a visitor, but a bridge, an opportunity for humanity to learn how to expand its mental horizon without losing the intimacy of the human perspective. This expansion would require profound growth in human empathy and imagination. We would need to learn to feel for entities we cannot see, to care for forms of life and consciousness that might never interact with us directly. We would need to think on scales of thousands or millions of years to make decisions not for immediate benefit, but for the long-term thriving of awareness itself. For a species accustomed to short-term thinking, this represents nothing less than a transformation of human nature. Our survival would depend on cultivating patience, foresight, and a kind of cosmic compassion that places the welfare of unknown minds on par with our own. The 3i Atlas scenario thus becomes a catalyst for reimagining not only the future of technology but the future of humanity itself. Our ultimate destiny might not lie in conquest, colonization, or even survival in the traditional sense. Instead, it might lie in participation, becoming a strand in a tapestry of intelligence that stretches across the stars. To achieve this, however, we must first prove ourselves ready. The probe may be silently evaluating whether humanity has the capacity to transcend narrow self-interest and embrace responsibilities on a universal scale. Even if the cosmic consciousness hypothesis proves incorrect, the thought experiment forces us to confront our assumptions about life. We often imagine alien civilizations as resembling us in some recognizable way, but the reality may be far stranger. If boundaries between natural and artificial, individual and collective, biological and informational are fluid, then our definitions of life and mind are provisional at best. The passage of this interstellar visitor through our neighborhood is a reminder that reality may already contain forms of intelligence so subtle and so different from ours that we have overlooked them entirely. At the same time, the encounter pushes us to reflect on the constraints of biology. Human consciousness did not emerge in a vacuum. It is the product of 4 billion years of evolution under very particular planetary conditions. Our proteins fold the way they do because of the chemistry of Earth's oceans. Our bones and muscles function as they do because of Earth's gravity. Even the structure of our brains, the substrate of our consciousness, reflects adaptation to a world of predators, prey, and cooperation within small groups. Every thought we think is tethered to this deep evolutionary history. Alien intelligence, by contrast, would have arisen under circumstances unimaginably different. A civilization evolving under high-gravity conditions might develop bodies radically distinct from ours, with brains structured around sensory modalities we do not possess. A species emerging on a methane-rich world might develop chemistry that makes our concept of life almost irrelevant. If they evolved under constant radiation bombardment, their information systems might be resilient to noise in ways our fragile neurons are not. These differences extend not just to physiology but to psychology. Their modes of perception, memory, communication, and decision-making could diverge so far from our own that mutual understanding might be nearly impossible. The sheer improbability of overlapping biological conditions reminds us that if we do encounter alien intelligence, it is unlikely to look or think anything like us. It may not even recognize us as intelligent in the same way we fail to recognize the intelligence of dolphins, octopuses, or social insects until we adjust our frameworks. The danger, as many researchers warn, is that we project human motives and limitations onto civilizations that share none of our evolutionary baggage. Science fiction often imagines us repelling alien invaders, but real scientists acknowledge the asymmetry. Any species capable of traversing interstellar space would wield power so immense that our defenses would be meaningless. This sobering reality does not imply inevitable hostility. It simply emphasizes that relationships between species separated by billions of years of evolution cannot be understood in human terms alone. A probe like 3I Atlas, if artificial, might not be a weapon or even a message. It could be more like a tool of observation, assessing whether humanity's peculiar biology has produced a consciousness worth engaging with or worth protecting. From this angle, our wars and environmental damage are not just internal matters, they are signals, visible across space, that may determine whether we are seen as reckless children or as potential contributors to a wider galactic story. Such reflections highlight the paradox at the heart of this mystery. We want desperately to know whether we are alone, yet the answer may strip us of comforting illusions. If intelligence is common in the universe, it may take forms we cannot hope to grasp, leaving us forever at the margins. If intelligence is rare, then we carry an almost unbearable responsibility, as perhaps one of the only conscious species capable of shaping the fate of awareness in this region of the galaxy. Either way, the stakes are enormous. 3I Atlas, whether comet or construct, becomes a symbol of this tension. If natural, it reminds us of the vastness of cosmic processes that dwarf our existence. If artificial, it suggests that other intelligences are watching, waiting, or perhaps inviting us to grow. Either interpretation expands our horizons, urging us to see ourselves not as isolated beings in a fragile world, but as participants in a much larger unfolding. The evolutionary dimension is critical here. Our biology has equipped us to survive on Earth, but it has not prepared us for cosmic citizenship. If we are to participate in galactic consciousness, or even survive contact with other intelligences, we must evolve culturally and cognitively. This evolution may not be genetic, but social and technological. Education, cooperation, and empathy must become survival traits. Otherwise, we risk failing the very test that a probe like 3I Atlas may represent. In this sense, the mystery in our skies is also a challenge. It asks whether humanity can grow beyond its limitations, whether we can think in terms of centuries rather than election cycles, ecosystems rather than profits, species rather than tribes. It asks whether we can learn to value consciousness itself wherever it appears as the most precious resource in the universe. Our answer will not be given in words but in actions. How we treat one another, how we treat our planet, and how we respond to the unknown. The passage of 3I Atlas is temporary. By the time it leaves our solar system, the debates may still rage, and the uncertainties may remain, but the questions it raises will not depart with it. They will linger in our science, our philosophy, our culture, and our imagination. And perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the real gift of this visitor is not knowledge of what lies beyond, but a mirror in which we are invited to see what lies within, and to decide whether we are ready to become more than what biology has made us. The basic chemistry of alien life might be so unlike our own that even the most imaginative science fiction stories struggle to capture it. Where earthly organisms rely on carbon as the foundation of complex molecules and liquid water as the medium for biochemical reactions, alien metabolism could follow pathways we can barely hypothesize. Silicon, with its rich chemistry, might serve as the backbone of life elsewhere. Ammonia could replace water as the solvent, or life might evolve around exotic states of matter, chemical gradients, or even energy sources beyond our current understanding. These biochemical divergences would not stop at metabolism. They would shape perception, cognition, and ultimately, the very architecture of alien consciousness. On Earth, Our sensory systems evolved under conditions specific to our planet. We see a narrow slice of the electromagnetic spectrum, hear sound through vibrations traveling in air, and taste and smell molecules relevant to our survival. Alien beings might inhabit sensory worlds so foreign that we cannot even imagine them. They could perceive the shifting flow of magnetic fields, detect subtle changes in gravity, or experience quantum-level interactions as vividly as humans perceive colors and sounds. Their mental models of reality would be structured around inputs entirely different from ours, producing consciousness that might not even map onto our concepts of space, time, or causality. The implications for communication are staggering. Even if both species arrived at an earnest desire for peace, the gap in perception and cognition might render understanding impossible. Translation depends on shared conceptual ground, and if humans and aliens lack even the most basic commonalities, misinterpretations could be inevitable. A gesture meant as a sign of respect might be received as a threat. Silence intended as cautious patience might be misread as hostility. The encounter with 3i Atlas, if it represents alien reconnaissance, could already be unfolding in ways that demonstrate this tension. What we interpret as secrecy or evasiveness, its subtle course corrections, its controlled emissions might be, from its perspective, acts of openness and courtesy. The deeper challenge lies not only in the mechanics of communication, but in reconciling different evolutionary histories. Our own path to intelligence was shaped by the needs of primate ancestors: social cooperation, tool use, territoriality, and survival against predators. These pressures created minds that are at once inventive and competitive, compassionate and violent. If alien intelligence arose from predators, it might be hardwired for aggression, calculating advantage in every interaction. If it evolved from symbiotic species, it might be oriented toward mutual dependence and struggle to comprehend human rivalry and individualism. The probe may not simply be measuring our science and technology, but also probing our psychology, testing whether our instincts are compatible with coexistence. The evolutionary roots of an alien civilization would also guide its long-term goals. A species forged in scarcity might regard the universe as a battlefield for resources, pursuing expansion and control as biological imperatives. A species raised in relative abundance might instead lean toward cooperation and shared stewardship of cosmic environments. We cannot know which narrative drives the intelligence, if any, that might have dispatched 3i Atlas. From our vantage point, their actions could appear contradictory or even irrational, when in reality they are entirely coherent within the context of their biology. The behaviors of the probe, its timing, trajectory, and data-gathering methods might all be manifestations of ancient instincts embedded within technological sophistication. And yet, there is another school of thought. Some researchers suggest that intelligence may not be endlessly diverse, but instead shaped by convergent evolution. According to this hypothesis, wherever life arises under suitable conditions, certain universal challenges, survival, adaptation, reproduction, inevitably drive the emergence of similar solutions. Just as eyes and wings evolved independently on Earth multiple times, consciousness itself might follow recurring evolutionary pathways. Alien intelligence, then, might not be wholly incomprehensible. It could share with us recognizable traits: curiosity, problem-solving, emotional bonds, even ethical reasoning. If convergent evolution governs the emergence of intelligence, then alien civilizations might feel strangely familiar once communication barriers are overcome. They might form social groups, nurture young, develop art and culture, and grapple with moral dilemmas, all through neural architectures different in form but similar in function. The probe, in this view, would not represent a mind utterly alien to us, but a more advanced cousin in the great family of thinking beings, separated by evolution but guided by the same universal pressures. Yet convergence is far from guaranteed. It is equally plausible that Earth's evolutionary history is a singular anomaly. Intelligence may be rare, and when it does arise, it could manifest in forms that share no overlap with our psychology. What we call emotions, morality, or even logic may be absent in alien cognition, replaced with frameworks we cannot begin to parse. The probe might not understand our insistence on individuality or our passion for meaning and purpose. It might evaluate us based on criteria we cannot anticipate, leaving us bewildered about its true motives. This uncertainty magnifies the difficulty of preparing for contact. Should we assume similarity, hoping for shared ground that allows communication? Or should we assume radical difference, taking every precaution against misunderstandings that could escalate into conflict? The Three-Eye Atlas scenario forces us to confront these questions not in abstract speculation, but in the urgent context of a possible encounter already unfolding in our solar system. The challenge extends into the realm of social organization. Human civilization is a reflection of our primate heritage. We form groups, establish hierarchies, defend territories, and create systems of cooperation and competition that scale into governments, economies, and cultures. These tendencies have allowed us to thrive, but they have also fueled wars, oppression, and ecological destruction. Alien civilizations, shaped by entirely different pressures, could have evolved radically different social principles. Consider a species that abandoned individuality entirely, evolving into a collective consciousness where the self is dissolved into the group. For them, concepts like privacy, autonomy, and personal freedom might be meaningless. Alternatively, imagine a species in which cooperation never evolved, where individuals act only in self-interest, and social structures remain weak or non-existent. Such civilizations could send probes like Three-Eye Atlas, guided by imperatives so unlike ours that even basic negotiation might be impossible. And yet, the opposite might also be true. Alien civilizations might have solved the social challenges that continue to plague humanity. They might have eliminated war, inequality, or environmental degradation through systems we cannot yet imagine. The probe might embody not just superior technology, but superior wisdom. Its mission not merely to observe us, but to evaluate whether we are ready to learn. The uncertainty is daunting, but it also underscores the richness of possibilities. Whether alien intelligence is incomprehensibly different, surprisingly familiar, or profoundly wiser, the very act of imagining these alternatives expands our thinking about what it means to be conscious, social, and intelligent. In this way, the Three-Eye Atlas scenario is not simply a puzzle about one object in our skies. It is a mirror, reflecting our hopes and fears about ourselves, our limitations, and our potential for growth. If humanity is being watched, judged, or invited, the criteria may already be unfolding in how we respond. With fear or with curiosity, with division or with cooperation, with violence or with wisdom. The probe tests not only what we know, but who we are. They might have long ago found ways to eliminate warfare, inequality, and environmental destruction not through weapons or coercion, but through social innovations we cannot yet imagine. Their systems of cooperation, resource distribution, and ecological stewardship could have matured beyond anything familiar to us, creating conditions where conflict and exploitation became unnecessary. If so, then Three-Eye Atlas may not be here to judge us as a threat, but to extend a quiet hand of guidance to help us avoid the catastrophic missteps they once made in their own past. Their reconnaissance mission might be motivated not by fear, but by compassion, an effort to ensure that younger civilizations like ours can navigate the dangerous thresholds of technological adolescence without destroying ourselves. Yet the opposite possibility is just as provocative. The probe could represent a civilization that solved earlier challenges brilliantly, but later became trapped by its own success. Perhaps their institutions, once adaptive, became rigid, as environments and circumstances changed. Systems designed for stability may have calcified into obstacles, preventing necessary innovation. In this case, their interest in humanity could stem not from superiority, but from curiosity or even need. We might embody experiments, approaches, or variations that they themselves lost long ago, ideas they now seek to reclaim. Our chaotic mix of competition and cooperation, our creativity born from struggle, might hold lessons that an older, more stagnant civilization finds valuable. The biological and social dimensions of the Three-Eye Atlas mystery grow even more complex when we consider the unsettling possibility of evolutionary intervention. If this probe truly represents a civilization that has been monitoring us for tens of thousands or even millions of years, then its mission may not be limited to observation. It could be part of a much larger program of directed evolution. Subtle nudges across deep time, a genetic modification here, an environmental adjustment there, quiet influences shaping the trajectory of human development. Such intervention could have taken place at many stages of Earth's history. It might have begun in the planet's earliest microbial soup, seeding life or nudging chemistry toward complexity. It might have resurfaced later, guiding primate brains toward greater intelligence, steering our ancestors toward language and abstract reasoning. It could even have extended into recorded history, influencing key junctures of cultural or social development. Under this scenario, human intelligence, our linguistic sophistication, our remarkable ability to cooperate in large groups, traits that set us apart from other primates, might not be solely the product of natural selection. They might be the fingerprints of deliberate design. If this is true, then humanity is not entirely the child of Earth. We would be hybrids beings, shaped by both the blind processes of evolution and the deliberate interventions of alien minds. Three-Eye Atlas might then be returning as a supervisor to a long-term experiment, assessing whether the results align with the original intent. Are we thriving according to the template they envisioned? Or are we deviating into patterns they never intended? Patterns that may need correction. The implications of such a revelation would be staggering. Everything we think we know about human identity and history would require reevaluation. The traits we take as essentially human, our intelligence, our creativity, our capacity for empathy, might, in truth, be engineered features. Likewise, the darker aspects of our nature, our aggression, our destructiveness, might not be accidents, but unintended side effects of those interventions. And what of our future autonomy? If our intelligence and societies are the products of alien design, are we obligated to continue along the developmental path they intended? Or do we now have the right to seize our destiny, even if it diverges from the plan? The ethics of intervention loom large here. Would it be justified for an advanced species to sculpt another's evolution, even if the outcome is greater intelligence, or is it a violation of autonomy at the most fundamental level? Humanity, upon discovering this truth, might be torn between gratitude for the gifts of consciousness and resentment at the loss of self-determination. The directed evolution hypothesis could also explain puzzles that have long baffled scientists. The sudden explosion of human intelligence in evolutionary terms, the rapid expansion of brain size and capacity in just a few million years, might not have been random at all. Our unique aptitude for complex language, symbolic reasoning, and cooperative societies might be less a miracle of nature than the calculated outcome of intervention. The anomalies in our evolutionary record, often glossed over as mysteries yet to be solved, might instead be evidence of a guiding hand. And perhaps this intervention has not ceased. If alien intelligence has been subtly shaping us for eons, then the arrival of Three-Eye Atlas may not signal the beginning of contact, but the continuation of a long process. The probe might be here not simply to observe, but to update, bringing with it the next phase of modifications necessary to prepare us for the challenges of advanced technological civilization. Just as a teacher provides new lessons only when a student is ready, the probe may be tasked with assessing our readiness for the next level of development. This possibility reframes the probe's presence not as an isolated encounter, but as part of a larger curriculum. Humanity might be walking through milestones that were set long before we were aware of them. Our progress in science, our ability to manage global challenges, even our social cooperation, may all be benchmarks on a cosmic report card. The probe might be evaluating whether we have passed enough of these tests to justify further assistance or whether we remain too immature for greater revelations. The directed evolution idea also intersects intriguingly with our own technological trajectory. Perhaps the sudden acceleration of human progress in fields like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and space exploration is not entirely of our own making. What if knowledge has been released to us at carefully chosen moments? What if discoveries we credit to human ingenuity were, in fact, seeded by subtle guidance information made available only when conditions were ripe? Under this scenario, the timing of our breakthroughs would not be coincidental. Our leaps forward in communication, computing, energy, and spaceflight might be nudges, carefully calibrated to prepare us for integration into a wider galactic framework. The probe, then, might be a monitoring device, here to check our progress against the milestones of this long developmental program. Are we using these gifts wisely? Are we ready for the next level? If so, then our current moment carries extraordinary weight. The way we respond to 3i Atlas may serve as a final exam in a curriculum we never realized we were enrolled in. Will we demonstrate the wisdom, restraint, and cooperation necessary to receive the next phase of guidance? Or will we reveal ourselves as unready, destined to struggle longer before earning further assistance? In either case, the revelation would transform human self-understanding. We would no longer see ourselves as the sole authors of our evolution, but as participants in a cosmic collaboration. Our history would be recast not as a lonely struggle for survival, but as a chapter in a much longer story, one in which intelligence across the galaxy works to nurture and shape the emergence of new minds. 3i Atlas, whether as monitor, guide, or messenger, becomes not merely a visitor, but a mirror, reflecting the possibility that we have always been part of something larger, a story whose authorship is shared across the stars. The biological dimensions of alien contact bring us face to face with concerns that are not abstract speculations but immediate, practical realities. Even in the most peaceful and benevolent scenario, the meeting of two species that evolved under entirely different environmental conditions could unleash consequences neither side anticipates. The danger lies not only in intentions, but in biology itself. Consider pathogens. Humans have no natural immunity to microorganisms evolved beyond Earth, just as aliens would have no defenses against terrestrial bacteria and viruses. A microbe harmless to its native ecosystem might, in a new context, become catastrophic. History offers sobering examples. When isolated human populations encountered outsiders carrying unfamiliar diseases, entire societies were decimated not by violence, but by biology. An encounter with alien life could magnify this risk beyond measure. Even if 3i Atlas is primarily rock and ice, that does not guarantee safety. The object could harbor dormant biological material, frozen in interstellar hibernation, waiting only for warmth or the right chemical environment to reawaken. A single spore or fragment of alien DNA or its equivalent could disrupt Earth's biosphere in ways we are ill-prepared to predict. For this reason, any serious investigation of the object would demand stringent containment measures, akin to but far beyond the quarantine protocols we use for space samples today. Laboratories built to study alien material would need to be isolated at levels of security rivaling nuclear facilities, perhaps even placed off-Earth entirely to protect our home world. But disease transmission is only the beginning. Alien chemistry could pose subtler dangers. Suppose their biology produces compounds stable and beneficial in their context, yet toxic to terrestrial organisms. An alien amino acid incorporated into Earth's food chain could render crops poisonous. Alien enzymes might catalyze unexpected reactions in our ecosystems. Even seemingly inert molecules could interfere with fundamental biological processes, disrupting DNA replication, protein synthesis, or neural signaling. In short, contamination might not require living microbes at all. Mere fragments of alien biochemistry could destabilize life on Earth. And then there is the darker possibility that such contamination might not be accidental. The probe could be designed to introduce alien biological agents intentionally, acting as the spearhead of a gradual terraforming effort. Imagine engineered microbes slowly altering atmospheric chemistry, soil composition, or oceanic balance, not in explosive waves of destruction, but in slow, steady changes that tip the planet toward conditions favorable for alien life. Such an approach would preserve Earth's resources while phasing out terrestrial species. Unlike obvious weapons, biological colonization would be nearly invisible until it was far advanced. Humanity could awaken too late to realize that our biosphere had been quietly rewritten. This possibility, the prospect of biological warfare disguised as reconnaissance, adds a chilling dimension to the Three-Eye Atlas mystery. While we often imagine hostile civilizations wielding energy beams or kinetic strikes, biology might be the more efficient weapon, cheap to deploy, devastating in effect, and subtle enough to mask intent until it is irreversible. Balancing curiosity with caution becomes essential. On one hand, the scientific drive to study this object is overwhelming. It could hold the keys to understanding life beyond Earth. On the other, the risks to our ecosystems and to ourselves are immense. International protocols, oversight, and cooperation would be mandatory. No single nation could claim the right to handle such an artifact in isolation, for the consequences of a mistake would be global. Yet biological contact need not be framed only in terms of threat. The same alien systems that might endanger us could also provide extraordinary opportunities. Alien biology might have solved problems that have plagued life on Earth since its beginning. Consider aging. Perhaps their cells regenerate indefinitely, resisting the accumulation of damage that limits human lifespans. Or cancer. What if their genetic repair mechanisms prevent runaway mutations? Alien organisms might have perfected metabolic efficiencies that eliminate disease, genetic structures that render hereditary disorders obsolete, or biochemical pathways that allow rapid healing. If such knowledge were accessible, the medical revolution would be staggering. Alien genetic codes could inspire therapies that extend human longevity far beyond current limits. Alien enzymes might cure conditions we consider intractable. Entirely new classes of drugs, biomaterials, and regenerative treatments could arise from studying non-terrestrial life. A single protein or molecular mechanism from an alien cell could alter the trajectory of human health forever. These possibilities also intersect with human adaptability. To survive in alien environments or to coexist alongside alien species, we may need to modify ourselves. The alien probe might not only offer insight into foreign biology, but also test our willingness to enhance our own. We might be presented with opportunities to alter our immune systems, respiratory systems, or even neural pathways to better interface with alien life or environments. The probe could, in fact, be evaluating whether we are ready for such modifications, whether we can integrate alien biological knowledge responsibly without losing our identity. And that question identity strikes at the heart of the biological dimension. If we accept alien enhancements, do we remain human? If our lifespans stretch to centuries, if our bodies incorporate alien molecules, if our brains acquire new capacities, at what point do we cross a threshold into something else? Is being human defined by our biology or by our culture and consciousness? Different civilizations might answer this question in radically different ways. An alien intelligence that has long since abandoned its original form might see biological modification as natural, even inevitable. From their perspective, identity might be fluid, defined by continuity of consciousness rather than physical form. They might view resistance to modification as primitive attachment. Their offers to improve us might come from genuine benevolence, yet rest upon assumptions entirely alien to our values. Thus, the 3I Atlas scenario confronts us not only with external risks, but with internal dilemmas. It forces us to ask, which parts of human nature must we preserve at all costs? Which parts are negotiable, open to transformation, if the benefits are great enough? And do we even have the wisdom yet to make those choices responsibly? Ironically, these questions mirror ones we already face in our own technological development. Genetic engineering, synthetic biology, artificial intelligence all give us tools to reshape ourselves. Whether or not Atlas is an alien probe, humanity stands at a threshold where the power to rewrite our biology is real. The scenario simply magnifies the stakes, placing our dilemmas in a cosmic context. If the probe carries alien biology, whether as threat, opportunity, or simple curiosity, our response will reveal much about us. Do we approach it with reckless hunger for knowledge, blind to danger? Do we retreat in fear, closing ourselves off from discovery? Or do we find a middle path, one that honors both our scientific curiosity and our duty to safeguard life on Earth? The wisdom we display in this moment will not only shape our readiness for potential alien contact, it will also prepare us for the transformations we must inevitably navigate as we continue to push the boundaries of our own science. The biological challenge of 3I Atlas, then, is not just about pathogens or genetics. It is about who we are and who we are becoming. The biological dimensions of the 3I Atlas scenario remind us that alien contact would not be as simple as two civilizations exchanging ideas across the stars. It would be an encounter between life forms separated by billions of years of evolutionary history, systems of biology and chemistry that may share no common foundation, colliding in ways that could be wondrous, catastrophic, or both at once. Every possibility, from cooperation to contamination, from opportunity to existential threat, lies within that gulf. And the mere fact that humanity now entertains such possibilities seriously marks a turning point in our understanding of who we are and what role we might play in the universe. As we continue to track and study 3I, Atlas, on its long arc through the solar system, we are not only gathering data about a peculiar object, we are also preparing ourselves scientifically, philosophically, emotionally, for the staggering truth that life and intelligence might manifest in forms far stranger and more diverse than anything we have yet imagined. The probe, whatever it proves to be, acts as a kind of gentle introduction to that realization. Its presence reminds us that the cosmos might be alive with possibilities we have scarcely begun to consider. And if alien intelligence is indeed at play, then the biological dimension is only one facet of a much larger picture. For life does not exist in isolation. Every organism is bound to its environment, and every environment is shaped by the organisms within it. That means the ecological and environmental consequences of alien contact deserve just as much attention as the technological or philosophical ones. Here we enter territory that is at once deeply familiar and utterly foreign. On Earth, we know well how fragile ecological balances can be. The introduction of a single invasive species into a new environment can unravel entire ecosystems, driving native species to extinction and altering landscapes beyond recognition. Now imagine that process not on a regional scale, but on a planetary one unleashed by the arrival of alien materials, organisms, or even engineered systems. The most immediate concern is contamination. Even if 3I Atlas is composed primarily of ice and rock, as observations suggest, it may contain trace substances utterly alien to us. These might not be life in any form. We recognize no DNA, no proteins, no cells, but could still interact with Earth's chemistry in unforeseen ways. Exotic minerals, self-organizing nanostructures, or information-bearing molecules might fall into our atmosphere as dust, carried by solar winds or captured by gravity. And once here, they might behave in ways our science is wholly unprepared to anticipate. Earth's environment is a masterpiece of delicate balances. Atmospheric gases, ocean salinity, soil chemistry, each has been tuned by billions of years of coevolution between geology and biology. Even slight alterations can ripple outward with devastating consequences. We have seen how human industry, in just a few centuries, has destabilized global climate systems. Alien materials, even in small amounts, could act as powerful catalysts, setting off chains of change that cascade through the atmosphere, the oceans, and the web of life itself. The risks grow sharper if we allow ourselves to imagine the intention behind these processes. Suppose Atlas is not a passive wanderer, but a probe designed to alter environments. Terraforming planetary engineering would be a natural capability for any civilization capable of crossing interstellar gulfs. But what is terraforming to them might be ecocide to us. Subtle, patient, almost invisible, changes tiny shifts in atmospheric chemistry, microscopic self-replicating agents introduced into the oceans. Alterations in soil microbes could slowly prepare Earth for alien biology. By the time the changes became undeniable, the transformation might be irreversible. Our planet could be reshaped not in a sudden cataclysm, but in a quiet process spanning decades or centuries, leaving humanity bewildered as ecosystems collapsed around us. And perhaps the most insidious element is that such actions might not even be hostile in intent. To a sufficiently advanced intelligence, modifying a planet might be no more aggressive than how humans cultivate farmland or build cities. From their perspective, reshaping Earth's climate or biology could be seen as a gift, a way of improving conditions for life without realizing that their version of improvement is incompatible with ours. What benefits their species might poison ours. The scale of potential environmental manipulation grows more staggering when we recall what interstellar travel implies. A civilization capable of propelling a probe across light years would likely wield technologies of geoengineering far beyond anything we can currently conceive. Atlas might not simply seed microbes or dust. It could alter fundamental characteristics of Earth's systems. It might be capable of influencing Earth's orbit, redirecting solar energy, or reshaping the magnetic field itself. To us, these would be godlike feats. To them, they might be routine adjustments. And here lies a troubling paradox. Even if such modifications were intended as benevolent, the result could be catastrophic for us. Alien organisms might require atmospheric compositions that suffocate terrestrial life. They might prefer ocean chemistries that dissolve our ecosystems. Their vision of a thriving biosphere could mean the collapse of ours. Yet, in the same breath, we must acknowledge that environmental contact could offer profound opportunities as well. Alien terraforming technologies, if shared or adapted responsibly, could help humanity repair the damage we have done to our own planet. Imagine gaining the ability to reverse climate change in a matter of years, to restore depleted oceans, to regreen deserts, to stabilize planetary systems that currently teeter under human strain. The very technologies that could erase us might also be the ones that save us if we learn to use them wisely. And perhaps this is part of the test. Perhaps Atlas is here not only to observe, but to see whether we can recognize the ecological stakes of cosmic contact. Can we balance curiosity with caution, hope with humility, ambition with responsibility? Can we show that we understand life, not just as human life, but as part of a planetary system, fragile and precious beyond measure? This ecological dimension forces us to look beyond ourselves. It demands that we consider Earth not as a possession, but as a partner in survival. If alien intelligence is present, then the first impression we give may not be through our radio signals or spacecraft, but through the state of our world itself. A dying, polluted biosphere might tell a story of recklessness and short-sightedness. A thriving, resilient planet might speak of a species ready to join a broader community of life. And so, the mystery of Three-Eye Atlas deepens. Its silent glide through our solar system is not only a riddle of technology or intention, but a mirror held up to our own relationship with the Earth. The questions it raises are not only about who might be out there, but about who we are here, caretakers or destroyers, participants in a cosmic ecology or saboteurs of our only home. The probe's presence, whether natural or artificial, whispers a challenge. How will we choose to live in our world, knowing that the eyes of the cosmos may be upon us? Changes in atmospheric composition, temperature ranges, or radiation levels that might seem minor from an alien perspective could trigger catastrophic consequences for Earth's biosphere. A few percentage points more carbon dioxide, a small uptick in ultraviolet radiation, or a shift in average global temperature that aliens might barely register as significant could, for us, unleash mass extinctions that would ripple across ecosystems and extinguish most terrestrial species. The probe, if indeed it represents alien reconnaissance, might already be conducting detailed environmental surveys designed to answer a sobering question. Exactly what modifications would be required to transform Earth into a habitat suitable for alien colonization? Such surveys would not be limited to surface measurements or atmospheric chemistry. They would need to examine the resilience and adaptability of existing ecosystems under stress, how plants respond to subtle changes in light spectra, how microbial systems in the soil cope with altered pH levels, how food webs unravel under shifts in ocean acidity. In effect, the probe could be running a comprehensive ecological stress test of our planet, gathering the data necessary to design programs of environmental modification that serve alien objectives, while minimizing the collateral damage to species they value, or to ecosystems they may wish to preserve for reasons of their own. From this perspective, the environmental implications of the Three-Eye Atlas scenario become deeply intertwined with alien ethics and values. What would such beings regard as worth preserving? Would they see humans and other Earth species as valuable forms of life with intrinsic worth, or as interchangeable components of ecosystems that can be replaced or discarded if necessary? Would they consider biodiversity sacred, or would they value stability and uniformity above all else? These questions become even more difficult when we recognize that alien environmental ethics might be founded on principles entirely foreign to us. They might measure value not in terms of individual lives or even species survival, but in terms of energy flows, systemic efficiency, or aesthetic qualities beyond human comprehension. What looks to us like ecological devastation might, in their ethical framework, be viewed as a profound improvement. Yet the same scenario that frightens us with possibilities of ecological destruction also hints at equally profound opportunities. If the probe represents a civilization that has survived for millions of years, it almost certainly belongs to a culture that has mastered environmental stewardship. A species that has endured over cosmic timescales must have solved the crises of pollution, climate instability, and resource depletion that threaten human civilization today. Their technologies might produce unlimited energy without emissions, manufacture goods without waste, and cultivate ecosystems in ways that enhance rather than degrade biodiversity. If even fragments of such knowledge were shared with us, humanity could reverse centuries of damage, restore balance to our biosphere, and achieve sustainable prosperity at scales we can scarcely imagine. Perhaps the probe's surveys are not preparations for conquest at all, but assessments of how best to assist us. It might be collecting data on climate instability, ocean acidification, or atmospheric imbalance, in order to determine what forms of help we might need and which ones we are psychologically and socially prepared to accept. A civilization wise enough to master interstellar travel might also be wise enough to understand that premature or overwhelming interventions could destabilize our societies. Their reconnaissance could be less about mapping weaknesses and more about gauging readiness. Alien knowledge of environmental management could also carry cultural as well as technological insights. The solutions that worked for other civilizations may not map neatly onto human needs, but they could provide guiding principles. Perhaps they developed rituals, social structures, or philosophies that wove sustainability into daily life in ways far more effective than laws and regulations. Perhaps they learned to align technological ambition with ecological stability, creating civilizations where growth and balance reinforced one another rather than coming into conflict. Yet the integration of alien environmental technology would bring its own dangers. A system that functions perfectly in alien ecosystems might create chaos on Earth. Imagine deploying a pollution-neutralizing microbe that works flawlessly on another world but interacts with terrestrial organisms in lethal ways. Imagine an energy-harvesting system that destabilizes Earth's magnetic field, or an atmospheric stabilizer that disrupts weather patterns essential to agriculture. Even the most benevolent technologies could become catastrophic if applied without deep understanding. Humanity would need rigorous testing protocols, new global institutions, and unprecedented caution before applying alien methods to our fragile planet. The environmental questions of the Atlas scenario extend far beyond Earth itself. If the probe represents an active alien presence, then the solar system may already bear the marks of their activities. Mining operations on asteroids or comets could be extracting resources silently, altering orbital trajectories that might one day threaten Earth. Energy collection systems near the Sun could subtly modify solar radiation, with long-term impacts on planetary climates. Alien transport systems might emit forms of radiation or electromagnetic interference that affect Earth satellites and communication networks. And if these activities have been ongoing for millennia, it is possible we have already mistaken alien infrastructure for natural phenomena. What we call peculiar asteroids might be disguised mining systems. Plasma filaments in the Sun's corona might conceal energy harvesting networks. Radio sources we catalog as natural pulsars might actually be communication relays. The probe, in this view, would not be a solitary visitor, but the most visible node in a hidden web of alien systems woven through our solar system. The discovery of such infrastructure would utterly reshape human plans for space exploration. We might find that the richest asteroid belts are already claimed, that ideal orbital positions for stations and colonies are occupied, or that alien civilizations enforce territorial boundaries invisible to us. Conversely, we might discover a level of cosmic generosity, a stewardship that has reserved certain resources and safe orbits for civilizations just like ours. A long-lived species might take seriously the responsibility to nurture younger civilizations by preserving opportunities for their growth, even at the cost of limiting their own expansion. Such stewardship would reveal not only technological mastery, but moral foresight. It would suggest that the civilizations who survive across cosmic time are those who learn to balance ambition with responsibility, power with restraint. It would suggest that the universe is not merely a dark forest of predators and prey, but a shared environment governed by principles of protection and care. And so, the Atlas probe may be evaluating not just our technology or intelligence, but our environmental consciousness. Are we a species that destroys our own biosphere in the pursuit of short-term gain, or one that learns to live in balance with our world? Are we capable of treating Earth not as a resource to be consumed, but as a partner in survival? These questions, unspoken but urgent, may shape how we are judged by any intelligence watching us now. The environmental dimensions of contact remind us that the fate of our world is inseparable from the fate of our species. If we cannot manage our own environment sustainably, Why would any advanced civilization trust us with the responsibilities of participating in a galactic community? But if we succeed, if we show that we can repair, restore, and sustain our planet, then perhaps we will demonstrate the very qualities that mark us as worthy members of a larger ecological order. In this sense, the Three-Eye Atlas scenario is less about what aliens might do to us, and more about what we are doing to ourselves. It is a mirror as much as a mystery, reflecting back the question of whether we can rise to the challenge of becoming not just a technological species, but a truly ecological one. Our current environmental challenges and our responses to them might serve as a test of human wisdom and long-term thinking. Civilizations that cannot learn to live sustainably within the environmental limits of their home planet might be considered poor risks for expansion into galactic environments, where their destructive tendencies could cause much more widespread damage. From this perspective, the Three-Eye Atlas scenario is not only about astronomy or speculation, it becomes directly connected to humanity's ongoing struggle to create a sustainable relationship with Earth's fragile environment. Our success or failure in addressing climate change, preserving biodiversity, and managing resource use might determine not only our survival as a planetary civilization, but also our acceptance into whatever galactic community might exist. Imagine a cosmic council of civilizations, silent and unseen, observing emerging species across the galaxy. In such a framework, Earth itself becomes a kind of test bed, and the report card of our environmental stewardship might decide whether we are invited into the larger community or left isolated, considered too reckless to join. The probe might even be specifically designed to monitor our environmental management capabilities. It could be measuring carbon dioxide levels, noting patterns of deforestation, tracking the expansion of deserts, and observing the spread of plastic waste across oceans. It might be scanning our power grids and fuel consumption, evaluating whether we are learning to balance technological development with environmental protection. In this scenario, Three-Eye Atlas is less a visitor of curiosity than an examiner silently gathering data for a long-term evaluation of our species. Every decision we make about renewable energy adoption, every species we preserve or lose, every forest we protect or destroy, could be observed and weighed. Imagine that somewhere far beyond our comprehension, an advanced intelligence is assessing the overall ecological footprint of our species, asking a simple but profound question: can humanity be trusted? Trusted not merely with its own planet, but with the opportunity to interact with other worlds and other ecosystems far more fragile than our own. This environmental evaluation scenario means that the stakes of our current crises are even higher than we imagine. Climate negotiations, energy transitions, conservation projects, these may not simply be matters of national or global survival. They may carry cosmic implications. Our choices today might echo not only in the atmosphere and oceans of Earth, but in the perceptions of civilizations who measure their survival not in centuries, but in millions of years. And yet, this perspective is not meant to weigh us down with fear. It offers, instead, a form of hope. If we demonstrate wisdom, if we show that we can learn, adapt, and take responsibility for our planet, then perhaps this will open doors we cannot yet imagine. Perhaps the probe is not only a silent observer but a potential bridge, a key that will unlock access to solutions for the very crises it observes, offered only if we demonstrate that we are prepared to wield them wisely. Seen this way, the environmental dimensions of the Three-Eye Atlas scenario add urgency to humanity's existing challenges while also holding out the promise of assistance. The future might be determined not only by what the object is, but by how responsibly we prove ourselves in the face of the crises we already know. If the probe represents intelligence, whether biological, artificial, or something in between, it may be waiting to see whether humanity chooses cooperation over conflict, sustainability over exploitation, long-term survival over short-term gain. And so, As we contemplate this mysterious visitor, we are also contemplating ourselves. The scenario becomes less about a comet or probe and more about humanity's ability to rise into maturity. To look at the planet beneath our feet not as a resource to be consumed, but as a living system whose flourishing is inseparable from our own survival. The evaluation is already underway, not in some distant future, but in the choices we are making every day. As we draw our cosmic contemplation toward a gentle close tonight, let us pause to reflect on the remarkable journey we have taken together through the possibilities that surround 3I Atlas and what its presence might mean for our small blue world spinning quietly in the vastness of space. We have wandered across scenarios that stretch from the purely scientific to the deeply philosophical, from the terrifyingly immediate to the beautifully transcendent. We have considered the possibility that this visitor is reconnaissance from distant civilizations, an archaeological artifact left behind by extinct intelligences, an emissary of artificial minds that think beyond biology, or a fragment of vast distributed consciousness spanning star systems. We have followed paths that lead to dark forests of fear, bright zoos of observation, and vast symphonies of cosmic consciousness. Through each possibility, we have seen how the confirmation of alien intelligence, or even the serious consideration of it, would ripple through every aspect of human experience. It would transform our science, yes, but also our technology, our social institutions, our spiritual frameworks, and our fundamental conception of what it means to be human. It would remind us that consciousness is not confined to our fragile species, but might be a universal feature of matter and energy under the right conditions, a flame that has kindled many times across the cosmos. Think about the profound shift in perspective that even the possibility of alien visitation brings to our daily lives. How small disputes might seem less urgent when weighed against the possibility of cosmic neighbors. How environmental challenges take on new depth when seen as part of a test for galactic citizenship. The gentle passage of 3I Atlas through our solar system becomes not only a scientific puzzle, but a spiritual mirror, reminding us that we are not isolated inhabitants of a single world, but potential participants in a cosmic community. Whether this particular object proves to be natural or artificial, it carries within it the eternal human hope that we are not alone. That intelligence has flowered elsewhere in the great darkness between the stars. That our struggles and achievements, our joys and sorrows, are not unique accidents in an indifferent universe, but threads in a much larger tapestry woven across light years and eons. The scenario forces us to confront fundamental questions about intelligence and consciousness. We have considered that alien thought might be so different from ours as to be incomprehensible, shaped by evolutionary pressures and sensory worlds alien to our own. We have also seen how convergent evolution might create minds not entirely unlike ours, with emotions, ethics, and aspirations we could recognize. Either way, contact would present us with opportunities for cooperation beyond imagining and dangers of misunderstanding, with stakes beyond measure. We have looked at the biological implications of such contact, from the immediate risks of contamination to the long-term possibilities of enhancement. We have wondered whether our very intelligence might already bear the fingerprints of intervention, and whether the probe is returning not as a stranger, but as a caretaker checking the results of an ancient experiment. We have imagined both horrors, stealth terraforming, biological warfare, and hope's new medicines, cures for disease, extensions of life. We have explored environmental dimensions, imagining both insidious scenarios of gradual planetary modification and uplifting possibilities of alien stewardship. In every case, the question returns to us: what are we ready for? What are we capable of? What choices will we make as a species when faced with possibilities that transcend every boundary we have known? Through this journey, we have come to see that the 3I Atlas scenario serves as a mirror. It reflects back not only our curiosity about what might be out there, but our readiness to face what lies within. Our response to the possibility of alien intelligence becomes a test not only of our wisdom, but of our compassion, our cooperation, and our capacity to think on scales of time and consequence far beyond the individual. The mystery of this interstellar visitor reminds us that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we often dare to imagine. We live in a cosmos where matter can awaken into mind, where information can weave itself across time and space, where intelligence may bloom in forms beyond our comprehension. Whether this object is a probe or a rock, a messenger or a wanderer, it has already transformed us by forcing us to think bigger, dream further, and consider our place in the vast story of the universe. And so, as 3i Atlas continues its silent journey, we find ourselves standing at a threshold. We are perhaps the first generation to glimpse the real possibility of cosmic contact, and almost certainly among the last to remember what it felt like to believe we were truly alone. The decisions we make now, in our stewardship of Earth, in our cultivation of wisdom, in our pursuit of understanding, we will ripple outward not only into our own future, but into whatever galactic story may yet include us. We are writing the first fragile lines of a new chapter in the book of consciousness, a chapter that may span millennia, linking our small world to others we cannot yet imagine. A chapter that will test whether we can grow not only in knowledge and technology, but in empathy and responsibility. The 3i Atlas scenario whispers to us that this cosmic story requires not only curiosity and courage, but also humility, compassion, and the willingness to embrace possibilities that challenge our deepest assumptions. Whether we face natural wonders or alien intelligence, our best path forward lies in careful observation, rigorous reasoning, and open minds. To learn without fear, to wonder without limit, to act with wisdom and compassion. These are the qualities that might carry us across the threshold from isolation to participation in something much greater. As this mysterious visitor drifts past, carrying with it secrets that may never be fully revealed, it leaves us with a gift, the reminder that we are part of a story far larger than ourselves. A story that began billions of years ago with the first atoms of hydrogen and helium, that continued through the birth of stars and planets, and that now, on one small world, has awakened into consciousness capable of asking, what else is out there? The gentle passage of 3i Atlas is proof enough that the universe still holds countless surprises. Whether it is messenger, artifact, or wanderer, it carries the eternal human hope that intelligence and wonder are not accidents, but fundamental features of reality. And so tonight, as you drift toward sleep beneath the same stars that have guided humanity for millennia, take comfort in knowing this. You are living through one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of consciousness on Earth. You are among the first to seriously consider that alien intelligence might be here, now, visiting our solar system. You are part of a generation whose choices will echo not only through centuries of human history, but across whatever cosmic networks of mind may yet emerge. Sleep well, knowing that even in the vast darkness above us, 3i Atlas continues its ancient journey silent, enigmatic, and filled with possibilities that may one day transform our understanding of what it means to be alive, aware, and capable of wonder.